Good evening, Rockville. Today is September 29th, 2025, and we're beginning meeting number 23-25. Please join me as you're able in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Sarah Taylor Farrell, we now will move to agenda review.
Madam Mayor and council members, there was a change to our agenda for this evening. We removed agenda item 11A, approval of resolution adopting rules of decorum and protocol. So that agenda item has been moved to a later date, future date. And that was the change on the agenda, and it reflects on the agenda and on the website.
Thank you. I think there was one more addition on Friday that I think is just important that the public is aware of the impact MOU. Mr. Mahila, can you just speak to the agenda changes as well?
Sure. Pleased to tell you that the impact tax MOU between the city of Rockville and the county was added late on Friday. It's in your agenda packet. Happy to answer questions if we need to. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Valeri?
Yes, I wanted to say something that I actually said this morning, but for the larger public, I think repeating it here will also hopefully be helpful. I believe that there is confusion by a very small number of people about the legislative process in the city of Rockville. I would like to take a moment to explain this briefly so that all residents understand the reality of how policies are developed up here on the dais. During strategic retreats and work sessions from the dais, the mayor and council identify policy areas that we would like to see advanced toward a resolution or ordinance. We do this as a body. One individual council member or the mayor cannot direct staff to develop an agenda item. This is a process intended to create parity and requires us as elected leaders to work together. Unlike legislators on the county, state, and federal level, we do not write our own bills or policies. Therefore, we cannot introduce a resolution or ordinance. We can only raise issues in a broad sense, and it is up to the entire body to direct or not direct staff to develop the broad issue into a draft ordinance or resolution with specific policies. This draft is then put on the agenda for all of us to discuss at a meeting of mayor and council. More often than not, the draft is revised from members of the body. After the body agrees to proceed with the revisions, it goes back to staff to edit and present to the mayor and council at a later meeting. Speaking for myself, at no point during this process do I ever direct staff on how to develop the drafts, and staff can confirm that I do not engage with them or dictate to them what should or should not be in drafts. This is an improper action in my mind, an action that I have not nor will ever engage in. I hope that this brief moment of educational background is helpful to our resident community. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to provide some context, Councilmember, that was in reference to the pulling of agenda item 11A, the full body. Well, most of us were on the LPT this morning and made a decision to pull it because we hadn't had a chance to review it in advance of it being posted and felt like it needed more work and have a variety of considerations to undertake. We appreciate staff's work on it and that it will not be as part of our agenda and nor will be approved this evening. Okay. All right. I would like to now move to City Manager's report. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Very long agenda tonight, so I'll just say that we're working on grants, a number of capital projects, community events, and preparing for budget season. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We have several boards and commissions appointments and reappointments. We'll begin with the first one, which is Sarah Clark, as part of the Education Commission. Who would like to make the motion? Councilmember Fulton.
I move to appoint Sarah Clark to serve on the Education Commission as a private school representative for a 2-year term until April 1st, 2027.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Miles seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. We now have several new youth commissioners to acknowledge today. We established a youth commission fairly recently, and we're so thankful to our young people who have bright ideas and are going to help us to make the city better for all. And so we want to recognize several of those folks today, and there are about 6 for appointment. Who would like to make the motion? Councilmember Valeri. 7, sorry.
Yes. There are 7 of them. Madam Mayor, I move that for a new appointment to serve a full 1-year term until October 1st, 2026, the following commissioners: Alan Goosh, Paige Henry, Albert Lee, Layla McCarthy, Daniela Naaman, Azusa Strader. Elijah? My bad.
That's in reappointment.
Yeah, no. And then a reappointment to serve a full 1-year term until November 1st, 2026, Elijah Noda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councilmember Van Grack seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Excellent. All right. If they are any youth members, please feel free to stand up. I know we might have some here. Congratulations and thank you. Okay. We now have some appointments to the Ready Board. Who would like to make the motion? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the new appointment of Vanessa L. Hara and Tamika Montgomery as new members of the Ready Board of Directors to serve a 3-year term until October 1st, 2028.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Councilmember Shaw seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right. Councilmember, would you like to continue?
I will continue,
Okay.
yes, thank you. I move the new appointment of Lavon Torrance Berner, Todd Pearson, Susan Prince, Morgan Sullivan, Justin Yang, and Claire Fears as members of the Ready Board of Directors to serve a 3-year term until October 1st, 2028.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Valeri seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.
Might as well just keep on. I'm on a roll. I move to reappoint Mohammed Kinmuyi as member of the Ready Board of Directors to serve a 3-year term until October 1st, 2028, Montgomery College ex officio representative.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councilmember, I'm going to give it to Van Grack. You go first. Okay. Seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. We're now moving. Thank you to all of our volunteers who have agreed to serve. I'd like to now move on to community forum. All persons, we welcome you to address the mayor and council. Please speak in a civil and courteous manner, and members of the audience shall be respectful to others. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes, and we ask that you stick to the 3 minutes allowed. There will be a time clock in front of you, and you will hear an audible beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Please state your name and if you live in Rockville, in the city of Rockville for the record. Thank you very much. So I'm getting the list now. Okay. All right. Thank you. We welcome our first person, Karen He.
Thank you. Good evening, dear Mayor Ashton, Council, Mayor and Councils, all the officers and all the audience here. My name is Karen He from We Star Robotics Center. So the reason I'm here is to raise the awareness of the STEM education and seek support for the STEM education. So we start with a little community with like about 10 students back to 2018. And right now we have over 100 students, we have 18 teams. Last year, 7 of our middle school and high school teams advanced World Championship. So we really represent the city of Rockville. We are playing important role in the world stage. So in order to honor the city of Rockville, we name all our teams under the zip code 20850. So we hope to bring more championship this year. So throughout the whole entire process, we see the big changes from our students. A lot of kids that came to our club, they were very young age, from like second grade and to high school students. Some they did not understand what is the robotics, how to make coding, how to build a robot, how to design. So they were very scared. However, we have a very engaging hands-on program. We see how students have been changed over those process, and we see we are not just using the robot. We are using the kids to build a robot. Instead, we are using the robot to build our kids. We see our younger kids become more STEM passionate, and they build up team building skills and the leadership skills, and more important than that, they know how to give back to the community. So they have offered 2 consecutive years in the Rockville Science Center free STEM program, and we teach younger kids to how to learn STEM, and I think we see the importance of the STEM education in the city of Rockville, and we want to bring more students to our program. That's why we are seeking for more support. Right now we are very crowded, and we are short of the funding for the parts because robotic parts are very expensive. But we see the big impact we have, given to the community. We want to, get more support from our, parents and from the city of Rockville. We are just located in the 20 courthouse. We are in the town center. Not only building the robotics, we have, see a lot of economic growth as well. The bubble tea owner are very happy with us. Subway and Eastern Dumpling House, we bring a lot of business to them. So okay, my time is up. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Pat Reber.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I live in Newmark Commons, and I'm here before you tonight about a zoning proposal that it will be before you on December 1st. I know it's a month off, or 2 months off, really, but I just want to get our message out there. There are also others here tonight from Newmark. If you'd sort of raise your hand, those of us who could fit in the room, it's a very full house tonight. We're here tonight to invite you all, the 7 of you, right? To gather in our neighborhood sometime before December 1st. I'm also liaising with the mayor and Councilmember Fulton about this. So we hope we can set something up just to walk through our neighborhood and see what the layout there is. So you can see why we are worried about the citywide rezoning proposal you are preparing to adopt that day on December 1st. If developed at the proposed zoning level on this property that affects us, it would drastically affect life in our historic community. Change is a constant of the human condition. It can be good for us, or it can provoke anxiety. Right now, Mayor and Council are poised to adapt a plan that, unfortunately, would do the latter, make many of us very anxious. The genius of governance in Rockville and the work you do as mayor and council is the protection and nourishment of the integrity of communities like ours around the city. It is what our city is known for nationally. At issue for us is the 9.75 acre plot adjacent to Newmark Commons. Since the 1980s, we have been reassured through various agreements involving the property owners, residents of Don Mills Court, our homeowners association, and this very city, that any development on this property would be, quote, compatible with the adjacent neighborhood. This is even stated in those quotes in the 2040 Rockville Comprehensive Plan. Yet now we find a proposed zoning change that would invite more than 5 times the density of Newmark Commons and would likely result in 75-foot high apartment buildings and minimal setbacks. We can't see how this would be compatible. In 2027, Newmark will celebrate its 60th anniversary. On our 50th, our city's Historic Commission and Mayor and Council backed our listing on the National Register of Historic Places. We were recognized for our mid-20th century architecture and the planning. We were one of the first 5 planned development communities in the city of Rockville. That law was passed in 1964. We understand the city's need for more housing, but we hope you will continue to support the integrity of our community by keeping the current zoning of the adjacent property. And we hope we can organize a visit to our community so you can see our concerns firsthand. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Next, we welcome Jamie N.
Hi, my name is Jamie and I live in Rockville. While I understand the topic of decorum was removed from today's agenda, it still needs to be addressed. On September 8th, you are all educated on how decorum has historically been used to uphold classism and racism in institutions of power. A week later, Councilmember Valeri, you introduced a resolution for stricter decorum to be passed ASAP despite the wise hesitancy and warnings from your colleagues. We have video proof of you pushing this, so I'm not sure why you're trying to twist the truth on social media and avoid accountability. I understand some of you feel aggressed upon, but the majority of the attacks that some of you have received lately, whether about rent caps, yard signs, or decorum, are actually you being held accountable for making decisions that hurt Rockville residents. I understand a small number of your constituents get to the podium and say things that are racially charged or unrelated to the topic at hand, which is unsettling. People are losing their jobs, losing their homes, and suffering from mental health struggles on a national and local scale. But the measures in this decorum document, like not allowing people to clap or limiting when folks can sign up to speak and giving the mayor unchecked power as a presiding officer, are not going to solve that. But you know what might? Increase mental health programs, housing stability, and focusing on the needs of the many rather than the wants of a few. But instead of focusing on those resolutions, some of you want to use taxpayer time and dollars to focus on making sure your butts get sufficiently kissed by your constituents during community forums. In a time where the First Amendment is in national peril, it is absolutely mind-boggling that a council member would push now on a local level for measures that suppress free speech. Councilmember Valeri, I don't know if suppressing the voice of your constituents was your primary intention, but even if it wasn't, it still reflects poorly on you that you don't have the social awareness as a person in power to realize the overarching implications of your actions. Honestly, I think you should resign because this is now a pattern of behavior that demonstrates a lack of accountability, poor forethought, unprofessional interactions with your constituents, and playing politics rather than progressing a community forward. Whether or not you eventually resign or decide to run for re-election, if I were you, I would start figuring out a contingency plan for what you'll be doing after this city council term, because I don't think the people of Twinbrook will choose you to represent them on city council again. The majority of your constituents follow the rules of decorum already established. We sign up to speak, we keep it to 3 minutes, don't use violent language, and stay on this side of the podium. We follow the rules of the game, and now you want to change the rules because you're losing in the court of public opinion. So if we follow your rules and you still try to silence us, then what's the point of continuing to play by your rules at all? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome Andre Dahlman.
Hello there, Mayor, Council. Thank you very much for having this forum for us to speak. I am also a resident of Newmark Commons. I've been there for 10 years. I'm also concerned about the master plan zoning ordinance and changing the parcel of property in question, which I believe is, it's hard to tell for me with the maps. The maps are very complicated, but looks like parcel 1235, which is at the corner of Scandia Way and Don Mills Court. You know, I love Rockville and I love the idea of growth, but I think in this particular instance, it would not be good for our community. Our neighborhood is, as Pat Rebard said, it was a planned community, so it's not particularly large. There's a lot of cul-de-sacs. There's concerns with traffic, and this would be quite a large increase in traffic to our neighborhood, as well as that particular parcel of land is kind of unique. There's some wetlands concerns there. I know that there's part of the land that is supposed to be maintained for wetlands. It's also right next to the highway, so there's like some environmental impact concerns, and it also was the site of the Poor Farm Cemetery, so there's actually bodies that are underneath there that were exhumed during the widening of during the creation of 270. So it's just kind of like a strange, hollowed place, and I feel like it would be best left alone the way that it is. So I would ask the council to consider that. I second Pat's, though we have not talked about this specifically, but I think it would be great if you could come through to the neighborhood in the next couple months before this plan will be recommended one way or another, so you can kind of see what some of the concerns are with the traffic. People already, we already have a lot of townhomes in there actually, which are part of our community, which we love and appreciate, but people are just moving pretty quick to get in and out of there because of the cul-de-sacs, and there's not a lot of ways in and out. So I think it's a valid concern that a lot of the residents have, that if this does go forward as planned and potentially that site would be redeveloped, it would be out of character for the neighborhood and not great. Also, I do have a secondary concern about the schools. I don't know if this is the proper place to address that, but I do have kids in Bayard Rustin. In the last 2 years, they've been put into portables. It's like one of the largest elementary schools in the county, kind of flips back and forth with Clarksburg and a few others, but I think that that would also have a pretty significant impact on the schools because it would most likely be zoned for Bayard Rustin as well. So I think that we should, I would just ask you to consider all these variables, and I appreciate your efforts and know that it's hard to split the baby, but if you could consider those items and come take a look in our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, Kate Deschel-Gold, followed by Jeff Diroff.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and City Council. My name is Nancy Catherine Deschler-Gould, and I've been a citizen of the City of Rockville for more than 9 years and a member of the Community Garden for, I think, around 7 years. I'm a board member, and I've been a board member for a while in the Community Garden. I represent 40 households from Rockville who garden there. And we're really, really happy that you have undertaken the process to make decisions about the future of the farmstead, and we're very hopeful that some use of the buildings can be found and funded. We agree with the community's preference for multi-purpose rooms, community kitchen, arts and tech spaces, maker spaces, wellness, daycare, childcare, and youth teen center. However, the feeling of our gardeners and I believe the larger community surrounding it is that the city should reject any uses that require a large parking lot. There are plenty of other places in the city for hosting things like hometown holidays, Rockville, is it called Rockville Town Center now? I know that the name has changed. We really don't even want to see the base scenario, and I am not sure, this is a question for when you have your session on this. It kind of looked like if the base scenario, which involved using existing parking, no additional parking lots, were implemented, that the dairy barns weren't going to be used. I may have that wrong, but on page 232, there's a chart, and it says not applicable. So that doesn't make sense to me because they're in better shape than the horse barn, for example, which was listed. So if you can look into that, maybe I have it wrong, but some of us are just really wondering about that. We really treasure the trees and lawn space and green space. It's so important, especially since the EYA project was allowed to be developed immediately adjacent to the garden and took away a huge amount of green space, animals, plants that are just gone, displaced, whatever. We had an influx of many groundhogs probably resulting from that. So we appreciate your thoughtful stewardship of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Ashton, council members. Thank you for the chance to address you tonight. We'll try to be super quick. First, thank you. It was a great summer for recreation and parks. Tons of summer camps, lots of use at the outdoor pools. That pool is magical, so thank you for the investment the city made. That's going to rebound for the next 30, 40 years. I think the only room more crowded than this in the city of Rockville is the Rockville Swimming Center tonight, so it's well used. I wanted to address just two quick issues. One is the farmstead, and the other is an unrelated issue for Redgate. On the farmstead, our message had been that you heard from us in the spring and over the summer. We want to reiterate, which is keep it simple and get it done. The barns have been effectively unused since I was going into middle school. I'm obviously quite a bit older than that now. And there's been great work done by the city and by the consultants, great input from the community. We would emphasize again that you take a really disciplined approach and look at high confidence in terms of being able to get it executed, not doing something that is aspirational, but something that can get done. I think the community garden is a great example that if you get space that's safe and usable for Rockville residents, they'll use it well. They'll make it into something special. Those buildings have been underutilized for 30, 40 years. Let's get them done. Keep it simple. And if there's a phased approach where there's greater ambition later on, that's great, but let's get those used as quickly as we can. That was the feedback from the Recreation and Parks Board. Separate, but somewhat related on Redgate, congratulations to the city. We understand that there's a $1.5 million award coming from the federal government. That's fantastic. It's really great that the city is looking for different ways to fund our priorities. We also really support the use of Redgate as a recreation facility. We did want to flag a concern. I want to be clear, this is not us saying put down homes on Redgate. It's not that. It's not put a coal-fired power plant at Redgate. It's not that. It's that our understanding is that taking that money from the federal government would give the federal government essentially in perpetuity oversight and restrictions on how the city could use Redgate. It's 130 acres. Forever is a long time. Your successors in 50 years, in 100 years may have a desire to build, I don't know, a small pool or something. $1.5 million for a in perpetuity land use restriction, we think is not prudent. That said, we know that you guys have a lot more information. We support the overall vision of Redgate. It's not at all saying change direction. It's just is it worth it for that amount of money for the city to give up that level of control over its own property? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome Nancy Picard, followed by Isabi Urban.
Greetings and good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm Nancy Picard, Executive Director for Peerless Rockville. I want to thank you tonight for holding not one but two important work sessions that concern historic preservation in Rockville in some way. For many years, Rockville has had a very strong reputation within the county for valuing its historic resources, and Peerless Rockville looks to you to continue to safeguard the city's heritage and its vulnerable historic resources. The zoning ordinance rewrite introduces key historic preservation measures, including an enforcement process for demolition by neglect, which we strongly support. However, it also contains proposals that would make it significantly harder to protect Rockville's historic resources. The draft before you includes altering designation and review processes, but it also recognizes that the 1977 adopted architectural design guidelines for exterior rehabilitation, that's a mouthful. The point is it's very out of date, 1977. Unfortunately, this is the same case for many of Rockville's other historic preservation documents. The Historic Resources Management Plan was written in 1986. This means that context statements by which we evaluate, and we meaning the whole city, but also the HGC, this is what they use to evaluate the significance of our history. These documents have not been updated for almost 40 years. Entire neighborhoods in Rockville have been built in this time. And more importantly, values about whose contributions to history actually matter have broadened significantly since this time. The 2040 Master Plan directly speaks to this need, with HPE Element Policy 1 calling for maintaining and strengthening the city's preservation program, and Action 3 prioritizing the completion of an updated historic resources management plan, including context statements that cover later 20th century history and underrepresented communities and cultures. If the 1977 guidelines are to be discarded and the public review process is diminished, what will replace it? We recommend that the city undertake a thorough review of these essential documents and carefully assess community needs prior to considering any changes that may diminish the designation process or jeopardize significant local assets. Moving on to the King Farm work session, that also relates to an HP element, which is 9.2, and that's to find suitable uses for city-owned historic properties such as King Farm. Peerless Rockville, I want to be clear, very enthusiastically supports reuse and reactivation
Thank you.
of this property. I'll send more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Il Sabier? Okay.
Can you hear me from I'm
Oh, it's virtual.
phoning in.
Okay. Give us 1 second. We have to finish the folks in the room. Apologies.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Brad O.
Mayor and Council, I live in Rockville, and I came here tonight to express my alarm at the resolution regarding decorum, which you were set to discuss this evening. I'm relieved that this resolution has been tabled for the moment, and I urge you not to return to it in any form going forward. I'm a teacher. One of my favorite things to teach is Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. In that letter, Dr. King addresses the way that things like tone policing have been used to attack social movements like his. Over and over, the form taken by free speech, assembly, and expression has been used by the powerful to silence and suppress communities of color, the working class, and other marginalized people. Clearly, any council members who were to support a resolution like this disagree with Dr. King and the values promoted in the letter from Birmingham jail. In a democracy, that's allowed, but it is wildly out of step with the community you represent. We want leaders who will fight back against the White House when it attempts to suppress speech that it doesn't like, not emulate the administration's tactics in our own community. In the discussions regarding rent stabilization this year, it was clear that a number of Rockville residents have become frustrated by a community that, by a council that turns a deaf ear to our concerns and experiences, instead choosing to side with wealthy real estate developers who don't even live here. I think it is understandable that residents have lost patience with the mayor and council, and if you are not prepared to hear spirited disagreement and occasional rudeness, you're in the wrong place. You signed up for this. Part of what representative democracy means is that constituents are allowed to tell you when you're doing things wrong, and they don't always have to be polite about it. Dissent is critical to a functional democracy, and decorum is discriminatory. Please do not join the authoritarians.
Thank you very much. Welcome Anna Chung, followed by Pedro Contreras.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Anna Chung. I'm a resident of Rockville. I've been a resident for almost 15 years and a resident of King Farm. I'm here to hear the work session on the farmstead this evening. You've heard from me in the past. I'm a gardener in the community garden, and me and my fellow gardeners and others in the community are able to enjoy the pavilion and the garden, and very much support all the work you guys have done to figure out how to save the historic buildings and make use of it for everyone in the community. I was a little surprised reading the documents for the work session that the addition of a 44-space asphalt lot or a 100-space lot is being considered. We're not interested in a new parking lot. We just lost a huge open space to the EYA development. Everyone's a little concerned about what that might mean for traffic. So as much as I want us to use the building, I want us to do it in a way that uses what the site has to offer in the new 47 spaces. I also thought it was strange that the scenario which does use the existing parking doesn't seem to use the dairy barns. Doesn't seem like the most efficient use of funds, since those seem to be the best buildings in the best condition right now. So look forward to hearing the work session, and I hope these are questions that you all will ask. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Pedro Contreras? Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Michelle Shen, followed by Samir.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michelle. I live here in Rockville, and I'd like to start off by saying thank you for removing the decorum resolution from the agenda, and I agree with some of the others who have testified here that you should drop it entirely. I believe it would be ironic for the council to call for decorum when Marissa Valeri is perfectly comfortable verbally berating members of the public when she's not on camera. And all we want is the ability to live here affordably, and that's what people like us have been advocating for on the city council floor. And by voting to ban even the discussion of rent stabilization here after hearing hundreds of testimonies in favor of this policy, I feel like the message you've been sending to the public is loud and clear that this council is inherently anti-democratic. And if you introduce these new decorum policies, you're also telling us that this council is also anti-free speech. It's upsetting to me that I live in a city with a council that cares more about how residents express their issues rather than the issues themselves. And to maintain decorum, you're telling us to put our emotions at the door in the face of evictions, homelessness, and an unsustainable rising cost of living. And you've sat through hundreds of testimonies and told us that those testimonies don't matter by voting to ban the discussion of rent stabilization, and that you know better than us on how to afford housing because the developers and landlords extracting our incomes from rent won't be able to run their businesses if we impose a simple regulation on them. I urge the council to continue to drop any resolutions on decorum so that we, as the people of Rockville, can have a path to advocate for ourselves and our neighbors in front of the council. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey everyone. I don't really have anything prepared, but I'll just talk. But yeah, so I do thank all of you that have taken out the decorum thing. I think it's pretty good. And I will say that with everything going on with decorum, I just don't like the whole idea that Marissa Valerie proposed this whole idea of decorum and is talking about it openly. There's even I went back and I was just curious about some of the clips and stuff, and I screen recorded some of this stuff of her speaking about this. Actually, let me find this real quick. And she was speaking about how about her proposal, talking about this.
Holding off on old new business thing because we've ended late lately. I wanted to put this forward to all of my colleagues that given in particular the tenor of it, especially community forum at the last meeting, and frankly, somewhat this meeting as well. I think it would be most advantageous to prioritize and codify the chamber rules of decorum as soon as possible, directing staff to do the same with a goal of approving the code of conduct as soon as possible, ideally at our next meeting. It's my understanding from Mr. City Manager that
I could keep going. Honestly, it's public. You could find it. You can approach me if you want to find out where that is. But I just want to say that there's something to be said here. And also, it's not fair for you to call for decorum when you just yelled at one of my friends about, like, twice, honestly, one of my fellow friends, twice saying, I will destroy you, saying all this stuff. I think you've all heard this stuff, right? It's kind of ironic hearing this stuff. And honestly, and historically speaking, it's been used in a way, as many of my friends up here has talked about, to essentially oppress minorities and essentially prevented their freedom of speech, right? Like, it's like, why, like, the whole idea of, like, decorum, like, the way you speak is going to differ based off of the culture you're part of, you know, the different, you know, ways of, there's just different ways of, like, speaking and stuff culturally and whatnot. And I think, like, for example, like, in India, for example, the British used colonization to tell the Indians that what they're doing, Gandhi, Bhagat Singh, a lot of these people telling them that they're being incivil, but it's like a lot of these civil rights movements are based about being incivil, right? So it's kind of messed up, if you ask me. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Welcome, Tyree, followed by Aaron Adams.
Excuse me. Good evening. First, thank you for removing the decorum conversation. I concur with some folks from earlier, but I did want to address the issue of rules of decorum in public meetings, particularly in light of both our nation's civil rights history, especially with our current political climate, and patterns we see right here in Rockville. Throughout our history, progress has rarely came from those who remained silent, had power, or who conform to polite expectations when confronted with injustice. Community movements are built on voices that disrupted comfort to demand change, voices that refuse to stay quiet in the face of systemic inequity. From the sit-ins to the marches, from freedom riders to everyday residents who risked arrest simply to be heard, civil rights leaders taught us that decorum must never become a shield against accountability. When we look at our own city, it is troubling to see rules of decorum applied in a way that often chills speech from residents while a sitting council member repeatedly disregards those same expectations. I have personally witnessed a pattern from a particular council member speaking with disdain towards individual residents, community organizations, and even other elected officials in front of community staff and other elected leaders, as recent as last month at National Night Out. These instances send a clear message that the standard of civility is not applied equally, and that those in power sometimes exempt themselves from the very rules they impose on others. It is not only what goes on behind the dais in these meetings, but what is happening in community at all times as well. I also appreciate Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Miles, and Councilmember Fulton for their voices last week regarding this topic. When decorum becomes a tool to silence passionate dissent from the community, yet is ignored by those on the dais, it erodes public trust. It communicates the same voices often, it communicates that some voices, often those of residents with legitimate grievances, must be muted while others can act without consequence. Civil rights history reminds us that discomfort is necessary for growth and that challenging power structures will rarely feel polite. If this body wishes to uphold respect in meetings, let's start with accountability on the council itself. Otherwise, heightened enforcement of decorum rules risk stifling the same community voices that have historically driven meaningful social progress. I urge you to reflect on this pattern, to acknowledge that real engagement sometimes requires tensions, and to ensure that rules of decorum are not weaponized against the community while being disregarded by its leaders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Aaron Adams, followed by Elizabeth Adams.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Erin Adams. I'm also here to talk about this issue of decorum being put on the agenda, pulled off, now tabled. I just want to say, like everyone else has been saying so far about this issue, this is setting a dangerous precedence at a very important time in our history. And I also want to say that I actually understand the instinct to self-protect. I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to sit somewhere and have people kind of telling you that you're not doing your job well. Maybe you hear it from your boss, but a lot of people don't know what it's like to hear it from a lot of people. So I understand what it's like to want to kind of protect, to put walls up, and to even silence the voices if you can. The only thing I can think of that's the most similar to that is me teaching college classes and having college students tell me that I'm not doing something right that I have a PhD in. So I understand what it's like to hear from people that you don't think know better than you of how you're doing your job. However, I do believe that public servants have a responsibility to rise above that instinct and to think outside of themselves and to try to let that emotion kind of go to the back, as instinctual as it is. And so I just want to also say that this is very concerning to me as somebody who really cares about young people, because I think you can start to set a precedence and tell young people that there's a certain way that you're supposed to talk to the government. I think one of the most encouraging things to me in this whole rent stabilization fight has been how many of my fellow young people, I'm not that young, but fellow young people I've seen come into these rooms and for the first time approach their mayor and city council. We didn't think about these spaces before, and now for the first time we're coming in here and now we're being told how to do that. And I will say that definitely hits different as a Black woman. So I will echo again my fellow residents when they talk about the racism and the classism that comes with these demands. I actually do want to take a moment to also thank Councilmember Jackson for his immediate hesitancy on this. I think for those who don't know, I'm a part of the Huntington Tenant Association. There was a moment when Councilmember Jackson came and sat with us in our apartment complex and had to kind of very directly hear from constituents how upset we were with his denial or refusal to take up the rent stabilization issue. I know that wasn't easy. It didn't end easy, but the way you do governance is to say you have the right to do that. You have the right to dissent with me. You have the right to get a little rude with me. You have the right to even ask me to leave an area, and you have the right to disagree with us, but there's a way that we go about that. And so I do thank you for that. And I hope that you would also uphold that precedence with the yard sign issue. I will tell you, I shouldn't say this maybe amongst I actually am not the biggest fan of yard signs, but I do think that people have a right to put yard signs where they want, as long as it's legal. So I do hope that you keep that same energy whenever you think about the yard sign issue. Again, as a federal worker right now, I'm hoping, I'm praying that you guys will really think about the democracy issue and never speak about this again.
Thank you. Welcome, Elizabeth Adams, followed by William Martinez.
Hi. Most of you guys know me from the community outreach. I am here basically on that issue. However, I'm taken aback by some of the other things I heard. In July, there was a law passed for mold. In the law, not much is written. I unfortunately have a mold issue now. As far as I can tell, it's up to each municipality to write their own rules, and I'm looking for help because my apartment complex, Fields of Rockville, I have a list of 15 other people. I could bring all their stories up, but I would run out of time. Their follow-up test was only done inside the containment units that they set up in my house. They did not do a full overall test. Me and my family are immune compromised. There are plenty of other people over there getting sick. My cat died, y'all know that. And this apartment complex needs to be held responsible. They are a low-income housing unit, and they accept government funds from probably 80% or more of the tenants there. And that's not just monthly payments, but it's tax breaks, it's grants that's supposed to go for the upkeep of the buildings. But I have proof that that's not happening. There have been many complaints to permits and code inspectors and code enforcement and everything by other tenants over there that have never been followed up on from a year ago. And so this apartment complex is not only taking advantage of all of the people that live there, but they're being allowed to by the city of Rockville. I brought this to your guys' attention. You guys are now well aware of it. And I am hoping that something that can be done to not only help protect my family, but all the other families over there. Brings me to the decorum issue. I hadn't heard of it. I'm lucky I came tonight. I am a white woman, and all the pushback that I've received trying to deal with this apartment complex and the issues in it have been ridiculous. Come to find out, the Landlord Tenant Commission complaint form's not even offered in Spanish. Everybody over there, 90% of those people over there, their first language is not English. This city is not set up to help those people. I lived here 30 years ago when I was a teenager, and all I heard was Rockville takes care of its residents. Here I am at 43 wondering if that's actually going to happen, because I brought this to your guys' attention months ago and nothing's happened. So, thanks.
Thank you. We have,
Good evening. I'm William Martinez. I'm also a resident here in Rockville, less than a quarter mile away. To be so close to the town hall and not be seen or heard for any help, I don't feel that's right at all. We have problems with mold issues there. I've been there since we had a flood in 2021. That's when I was allowed to see, when they dug up behind the walls, I could see nothing but black everywhere. I've been ignored ever since. Since May, we had another storm. Open up the walls again. They left it open. Black everywhere. I had a city code enforcer come through, Barry Cooper. He came through and told me he can't force them to open the walls. So apparently I have to pay for my own mold inspection. I'm a single father. That's not easy to do. I have my kids here. I'm taking care of them. Why should I have to pay when I told the complex themselves the issues I'm having, and I've requested mold test, air sampling test, blind eye. Now I found out, I could put these violations, to you guys. Still nothing. Barry gave them till October 1st. They only replaced one hole in my wall. Carpets are still mildewy. Seems like they're not helping. We went out, put paperwork on everyone's door of where they can make complaints. Next day, the complex took it down. I do thank you for sending 2 of your city workers. They did come through and put paperwork too. I'm not sure if those got taken down also. And even if they didn't get taken down, I'm not sure how much residents will put in violations. And if many did put the violations in, what happens afterwards when they're not heard either? We need help over there. It's pretty bad. It's risking all of our healths, and we're right there, not that far from you guys. I hope to see some sort of outreach of some sort or accountability to the apartment complex, the Fields of Rockville. They're taking their sweet time, and it seems like they probably would have never done anything unless somebody comes up and starts talking. I heard there's some people who put violations over a year ago and nothing happened. I don't plan on waiting a year or more. We need you guys' help. We have many more of the people who's gonna be signing up, and they already did too. I appreciate you guys opening your ears for now. I will be back.
Thank you. Welcome, Cassid Ayers.
Hi, my name is Madison Dunn, and this is my sister Cassidy Ayers, and we live in the Fields of Rockville. We just wanted to say that ever since we found out the mold, we've been getting really, really sick. I missed a lot of days of school when I was in 8th grade. Same with my sister Cassidy. I've been getting many more headaches ever since then. And our cat Willow died, just like my mom said, and it was really, really hard on us. And it's really, really hard now. And I just really, really hope that maybe like you guys can help, because this is a problem and we really need this to stop. There's many more people out there who also has the same problems there, and it's not good, and they're not getting help as well. And my sister would like to say some stuff too.
It's okay.
So
Take your time.
this stuff has been hard on everybody, and some people aren't speaking loudly, putting it out, and they don't usually do a lot of things because they can get scared. But that's why we need your guys' help, and it's been affecting everybody around, and it's been a lot for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to, Mr. Mihailak, there were some public safety concerns with housing conditions. I just wanted to see if you can address and also maybe have someone meet with them in the back as well. I just want to make sure that is clarified.
Happy to do that. Let me just address it broadly, Mayor, if that's okay. Well, first of all, we just appreciate people coming forward and sharing their concerns and thoughts about what's been going on at the field. So we are aware of it, and we've been taking a number of different steps to try to address the issues there, which are complicated and diverse and not consistent across the entire apartment complex. But there's a number of units there that need additional work. As the mayor and council know, we've been out to that property on numerous occasions. A couple times, very specifically, we received complaints, and our code enforcement team has been out there the next day to talk to the tenants, to gain access to the units, and then to try to gain compliance from the property owner. The property owner has not been moving as quickly as we want them to. We have written a few tickets a couple times to make sure that they're moving forward in a more prudent manner. They have made some changes to the property. They are actively making some remediation efforts, and we expect them to come back and do some testing to make sure that all of the issues have been addressed in an appropriate way. We want to make sure that people realize that we have a HAT team, and the HAT team includes housing navigators, which are city staff members that can provide people with assistance regarding housing services. And we also have representatives from our code enforcement team. Those folks are available to meet with people and to address their concerns. They have gone out and canvassed the entire apartment complex, knocked on doors to see what issues they're addressing. We do have language services available for people as well. Both a lot of our written documents are both in English and Spanish, but even so, people can ask for language services, and we can have somebody that does speak Spanish very fluently to meet with folks to address their concerns. So we're aware of it. We provided lots of opportunities, including a community engagement session with council a couple weeks ago, and we'll continue to work with folks that have complaints and the property owner to make sure that there are safe conditions in the fields. And there's staff back there if they want to raise their hand who can meet with people. If they have more detailed questions or concerns, please meet with them in the hallway. We'll take down names, addresses, and phone numbers. We'll have someone go on site. Thanks for the opportunity, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And I believe that this form is in Spanish, and if people could be provided that Spanish language version, that would be greatly appreciated.
You bet.
Thank you.
The landlord-tenant complaint form is not offered in Spanish as of 2 weeks ago. Excuse me? It's on the website.
Guys, I would just, if staff could follow up outside, I believe I asked this question about Spanish some time ago, and if that could be provided in print, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome, Chandra Gordon, followed by Aileen Cabal, and thank you all for your testimony. Do we have Chandra Gordon or Aileen Cabal? Okay. Next is Grant Sams, followed by Ulysses. Okay. All right. I'm having trouble reading this, but I'll try. Nikak Zimmerman. All right. Grant, welcome.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Grant Sams. I am a Rockville resident. I'm the president of the REIT Tenant Association and a very proud member of Rockville Renters United. I want to thank again the council for pulling the decorum resolution this morning. I still think that this is a very deep, or a moment for deep reflection in our community and reflection about the kind of community that we want to be. For historical context, there have been a few other grassroots movements that have come up around issues in Rockville in the last few years. The Seven Locks Alliance advocated using yard signs and hand signs in chamber and clapping. The Don't Widen 270 campaign had yard signs and hand signs and clapped. And Rockville Renters United now has yard signs and hand signs and clapped. And I by no means am criticizing those movements, but rather I offer them as a counterpoint and a moment for reflection. It seems that even though these movements have all used the same tactics, It is for some reason now that we are seeing a scramble to create rules about how these tactics may be used. And I think that should be criticized in the highest of terms. As far as I can see it, there are two primary differences between those two prior movements and ours. The first is that their goals had apparent unanimous support from the mayor and council that they were in front of. And the second is that they were predominantly made up of wealthy white individuals. Rockville Renters United, on the other hand, stands opposed with the majority of this council, though I do want to thank council members Shaw and Miles for your ongoing support of rent stabilization. And this is a particularly diverse movement of people from a very wide array of racial backgrounds, income levels, living arrangements, and degrees of political experience. And that last point in particular is something that I'm very proud of. The ongoing rent stabilization fight is, for the first time, engaged people to come before local lawmakers and discuss issues and get involved in the political process. And broader political participation from a true and complete reflection of our community can only strengthen the quality of our democracy. And yet, it's this moment that there is a sudden scramble for rules on these tactics. Rules that would make it harder for that true reflection of our community to be visible in our local politics. So this is a moment for reflection, I think, for our entire community. Are we the kind of community that wants to erect barriers to that participation? Or do we want to open up the door and be equitable so that all can participate in that process to strengthen our democracy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did anyone who I called who was not able to speak come into the room? Okay, all right. Ulysses Samantha, followed by Nikak Zimmerman, and then we had Wendy Murphy. Okay.
Hello there. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Ulysses Santa Maria, president of Rockville Science Center. I'm here regarding King Farm and its developments. As far as I've been made aware, that the makerspace, as part of the concepts for the current plans for King Farm, is still there. Just want to give a friendly reminder that we're here. We have our own makerspace. It's here in Rockville Town Square. That is currently 1,500 square feet. With an active membership base of over 100 people now, thanks to our efforts, and that we continue to be involved both in the greater community. We were recently at Rocktoberfest and making a great use of one of our best machines, a laser cutter and engraver, helping people make customized coasters. But we have much more capability than that. Generally speaking, we would serve as a great complement to any of the efforts there, especially for any sort of makerspace development. We have been doing it now for a couple years, and we're happy to serve as any sort of information, insights, or any other ways that we can help in this regard. So we'll be here as well for the longer working sessions. So just wanted to let you know that we're here. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a tenant organizer here in Montgomery County, and I dedicate most of my time to tenant organizing because I believe that tenants like myself will deserve safe, affordable, and dignified places to live, as we've heard a lot about tonight. I would like to echo some of the points made by other speakers so far. Even though the decorum resolution was removed from the agenda, I think it's worth asking, why was this discussion brought up to begin with? I'd also raise that any discussion on decorum from this body just feels especially hollow, given the behavior of its own members. As I've shared on this body, on January 13th, Councilmember Melissa Ferrieri approached me and harassed me and another community member, unprovoked. We were just leaving the building. And I tried to de-escalate. I tried to walk away. She tried to continue the conversation. And I was completely shocked. I still don't feel safe in this building, if I'm being completely honest. I emailed the council, asked for, just to let them know what happened. I asked for an apology, never received an apology. Later this year, I think this is already been referenced tonight, Councilmember Berry spotted me and another community member canvassing in Twinbrook about rent stabilization. This is a right protected by the First Amendment. And she told us that she would destroy us. This council was again made aware of this during the June 16th hearing. The lack of response from the mayor and council to me says that they condone this behavior. And I suggest before the council moves forward on this, they should take a deep look at how their own members are treating others before regulating other people's speech. Thank you.
Very much. Welcome, Wendy Murphy, followed by, we'll see if anyone else in the room would like to speak.
Hi, I'm Wendy Murphy, and I do live in Rockville. I am heartened to see that that whole decorum thing was pushed back again. Now what you can do is put rent stabilization in its place, and there we go. I'm the child of 2 Holocaust survivors. My father was the director of the Viennese political cabaret in the late 30s, who went through the woods and stuff, hiding and putting on shows against Hitler. And both my grandparents owned newspapers, so they were all targets, you know, actors and newspapers. They all had to flee overnight. When I saw this announcement about decorum, decorum is such a not real word, you know. Anyway, it stunned me. And I just think right now we're worried, I'm worried that our country is an autocracy. So I think we could worry about that too. And we should maybe worry less about hurt feelings and more about keeping people housed, fed, and safe from being kidnapped off the streets. So, thank you.
Please state your name and whether you live in the city.
Dhruva Diego Kumar, thank you very much. I might possibly candidate for Montgomery County Council or United States Congress, House of Representatives. Honorable Mayor Ashton, thank you for again presiding, leading over this Open Democracy Forum. I have to say this every time I'm at this podium. Thank you so much. Audience, not just for you all, but the public and the folks over here. Now, Chris Mazin, that's a part of this Rockville Renter group, he had many hours a few months ago. His group members, they all said the same thing. But they're very different, very eloquent, all of you, but you all said the same thing. So please, if you can, at some point, we can arrange for me to speak here a little bit longer. Now, my preamble, as I said, very important, very important. I pledge allegiance to British America, not Latin America, not rude, new, young generation to dominate, abuse us, communist China America, not too much disrespectful American generosity usurping H-1B home country India America, not mediocre talent famine also usurping American generosity Africa famine countries America. I said Africa famine countries, not so much Africa beautiful continent. You all also belong to the British Europe America. I pledge to all USA America everywhere. Now, I want to take my hat off and say I want to thank the good Lord for making me a Trumper. I want to thank the good Lord for making me a voter of MAGA, His Majesty, America First President, Donald John Trump. I think, I hope, and that's my disclaimer, and like a famous North American soccer league player once said, me thinky. Now, some America First policies that make it reduce hate and jealousy in our community and country. And what is that? Well, we've had so much immigrant access. We should distinguish citizenry for black people, white people, and also people from my home country that were here before the end of the Cold War. If elected, I'll work on this to reduce jealousy, hate, these type of policy. Another America First policy that the Trump administration did this past week is H-1B applicants. You have to now pay $100,000 employers, so you don't screw a lot of us USA Americans, so we will get more opportunities for these type of jobs. Very good policy that the Trump administration passed. Now, Dems are huge elitists. The true oligarchy are the Epstein-Repsteins, Kagan, Vogel, Friedson, Glass, Elrich, the Tacoma Tres lacking, Kate Stewart, Elrich, Epstein, Repstein, Raskin. These are the true oligarchy authoritarian folks. Now, our National Guard, our U.S. Army, these are very decent men. We are good. We are good people. USA soldiers, military are good people. So they are not what you guys keep promoting. Now,
Thank you very much. Sorry, we have to, thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Welcome. Please state your name and whether you live in the city of Rockville.
Hello, my name is Chris Madden. I live in King Farm. First, I would like to disavow. I do not know or talk to that man. I've talked to him once. I do not disagree with any of his ideas. He is not part of the Rockville Renters United movement. Just want to get that out of the way first, as he called me out. But I would like to thank this council for not bringing up the decorum issue. And I'd like to thank Barry Jackson in particular for defending the First Amendment in these trying times with the federal government facing so much pressure on silencing comedians and firing people for undue things and restricting the freedom of speech. Because this city deserves better. You all have the power to do so much good on this council and help the people of Rockville so much. And we're in a very trying time right now. We have we have one of the highest concentration of federal employees probably in the country, with NIH just around the corner. And there's another mass firing being threatened in 2 days after the budget cuts. And those people need security. Those people need to make sure that their community is going to take care of them, no matter what happens at the federal level. We need to come together. We have bigger issues to talk about than decorum. We have issues about affordability. We have people about housing. Children coming up and speaking out here is crazy. Like, we need to work on our actual issues, not just hurt feelings. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I think I saw, okay, Mr. Scott and former Councilmember Pershela.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Just a little ad lib here. I am, and my wife are members of the Freedom Forum. We just went to dinner a few nights ago, and Freedom Forum really promotes the First Amendment. And so I just wanted to let you know that on October 11th, there's going to be what they call a 1A Fest in DC, and 1A stands for the First Amendment. So if you all want to go to the Freedom Forum website, you can find out about that. At the dinner the other night, there was brief remark about Los Angeles City Council apparently had kind of the same issue and was going to try the same approach, and it just didn't go anywhere. And so you have to be very aware of the First Amendment rights. Okay, and now I'm going to shamelessly segue into Peerless Rockville's part of their 3-minute presentation they didn't have a chance to get, but I do agree with these following 3 paragraphs. The King Farm work session tonight relates to historic preservation element 9.2, which speaks to finding suitable uses for city-owned historic properties. Peerless Rockville enthusiastically supports reuse and reactivation of this special property, but we ask you to cautiously review irreversible and expensive changes occurring to any determination of use. The word demolition appears in this draft 124 times, but to our knowledge, there are no definitive tenants, assigned spaces, or specific uses in place. Identifying and vetting usage prior to deciding on specific levels of demolition is not just good fiscal and cultural resource stewardship, it is a strong tenet of historic preservation practice. We implore you to keep the history and historic fabric of this property at the forefront. The HDC, Historic District Commission, was first briefed on this project on September 18 and have been informed they will next be involved when a plan is fleshed out, and it is time to conduct a courtesy review. This may be very late in the process. Peerless Rockville encourages the city to directly engage with partner groups as this undertaking moves forward to include the potential partners and tenants, the King Farm community, other invested organizations such as Peerless Rockville and Ready, and the HDC to determine realistic and appropriate uses before codifying future renovations into a master plan. And as you all know, I have a very active interest in the King Farm farmstead. I will be at your work session tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Paul Scott.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. It's good to see you all this evening. I'm here to speak to you in my capacity. My name is Paul Scott, and I'm here to speak to you in my capacity as elected president of the King Farm Citizen Assembly. The Citizen Assembly is the homeowners association for King Farm. King Farm was established in 1997 and is almost 30 years old. Despite the age of that community, it is a highly sought after and desirable place to raise children, live and work, play, and retire. Rockville itself prides itself as a diverse community, and I'm proud to say that you will find no greater diversity than what exists in King Farm. I'm excited that after 25 years, we might actually start to see the farmstead come into fruition for the good of the city and its residents. I must commend the city staff, city manager, your team, with regards to the process that they have conducted, the outreach and the listening sessions from the community regarding the farmstead. King Farm is a community that will be directly affected by the decisions that the city will make regarding the farmstead and the resultant farmstead master planning. King Farm has approximately 3,400 units under management, single-family homes, townhomes, apartments, and condos. Our population is close to 8,000 to 10,000 people who, again, live, work, and play within our boundary. I also serve on the board of the King Farm Conservancy that consists of representatives from the commercial development and the retail space and other residential developments located in that area. And we in King Farm are monitoring current development activities that may have an impact on our community, including some of the life science development, the continued closing of the Buick King Farm location, some of the development that's occurring over in the WMATA areas, and of course the Goody Drive entrance to the senior center. And tonight I would like to encourage the mayor and the council to ensure that there's a flexible usage of the farmstead property with minimal impact on the established King Farm community. The main concern that I want to bring to your attention is to ensure that that minimal impact related to traffic, noise, nuisance, and litter, potential for increase in crime, even though we have a great police department, and parking. And let's talk about parking. I'm encouraging the mayor and the council to place a priority on the following and just consider these issues. No expansion of the hardtop parking on the current farmstead site. Secondly, encouraging parking at the adjacent parking locations at Maddie Stepanek Park. Third, encouraging and emphasizing parking at the closely located Shady Grove Metro Station. And also, perhaps looking into having a shuttle bus service from Shady Park or even Maddie Stepanek over to the farmstead. I want to close by saying the residents of King Farm, as well as the residents of the city of Rockville, appreciate the work of the city and the staff and the work and the guidance and the direction that the mayor and the council give. You all are dealing with difficult issues, and we appreciate how you are parsing through them. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Okay. All right. We have someone who is virtual. Welcome, Ilsabe.
Yeah, Ilsabe Urban. Can you hear me fine?
Welcome. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I am speaking about the farmstead development for King Farm. I live in Rockville, across the street from the farmstead itself. My window looks straight out onto the community garden and the barn. I had two particular concerns that I wanted to bring up. The first was a concern about mentions of having special events related to a possible auditorium or otherwise. Specifically, I'm curious about the frequency and size. And secondly, my concerns are related to parking. I would prefer personally little or no extra parking in the spot. As Paul Scott just mentioned, the Maddie Stepanek Park has a lot that is 0.2 miles from the entrance to the King Farm farmstead from there, and it is a wide and very accessible path that is well paved. It's also rarely full. Tonight, when the park was completely full with pickleball and tennis courts, et cetera, there were only 20 cars in the actual lot, and I would say at least 80% of the lot was free. The other thing I would like to emphasize is I think any new parking, were there to be any, should have an entrance on the 355 side so that it does not come through the neighborhood. One thing about King Farm is it was established as a pedestrian family friendly community. And especially since COVID, the path that goes in front of King Farm is a heavily used walking trail. So I'm not just concerned about bringing extra traffic into the neighborhood, but if there was an entrance on that side, that means that people and cars are going to have more potential for conflict. My son was just hit on 355 by a car coming out of a parking lot last week. I would also like to say that field on the side with the community garden is much more heavily used than the one on 355. If you're going to talk about historical preservation, I think looking at that side is more useful than the one being seen for as people drive by at 45 to 50 miles an hour. The one close to 355, I don't see a timer, I'm sorry, is very noisy and loud and an unpleasant place to be, whereas the one on this side of the barn is much more frequently used by dog walkers, people with kids, picnics during the winter time. It is frequently used for sledding on the small slopes. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
You're right on time. Thank you. All right. That exhausts everyone who has signed up in advance and those who have raised their hands in the room. Thank you all for your opportunity to testify. I want to open the floor to Robert Dawson, our city attorney.
So I just want to make a very quick statement that the purpose of the rules of decorum, which were pulled from this evening's agenda, were drafted by the office of the city attorney without input from any member of the mayor and council. And the purpose of the pulled rules of procedure was for the mayor and council to consider adopting reasonable, content-neutral, time, place, and manner restrictions to facilitate the body's interest in orderly, efficient, and productive meetings. And it was not for the purpose of violating the First Amendment rights of any community members, particularly the viewpoints of those community members. And I just wanted to say that for the body.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. I appreciate that. Okay, that now concludes community forum. Councilmember Jackson, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a little statement, because my name was mentioned several times during community forum, and I appreciate what they had to say about my comments on the First Amendment. But I wanted to address the decorum issue. Yes, I have First Amendment concerns, as do other members of the council, and that includes Marissa Valeri. I just want to clarify that I support free speech. I support guidelines for decorum. I don't believe that the two are incompatible. I voted to pull the item because it included more than just decorum, and I didn't think we had enough time to read it. But this is something we have discussed for a long time. It isn't just something that was written this week. My colleague, Marissa Valeri, is unfairly being singled out when I know she is one of the biggest supporters of free speech and is just looking for a way for everyone to feel safe and speak their minds in this chamber. I think that is something that we all want to work towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Grack.
Just to add to that, because I'm someone who truly believes that any substantive restrictions on free speech and community forum are a significant problem. There should not be any restrictions that could be judged in any way with regard to eliminating content. But importantly, and I think it's to be said because the whole body was addressed here, every single person on this dais this morning during the leadership planning meeting specifically not only voted to pull it, but had impassioned speeches as to why the broad restrictions on speech should not be done with community forum. And importantly, that pulling was initiated by Councilmember Melissa Valeri, who led us in actually specifically moving to pull it. I think every single member of this body specifically wants to uphold free speech and make sure that there's no improper curtailing of people's speech here at Community Forum. And I truly believe that every single one of my colleagues has that view.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's. Councilmember Shaw.
first of all, I did want to thank everyone who spoke at Community Forum, and I want to thank the community members who did speak and uphold our First Amendment rights, just like this body as well. I do think that we need to figure out ways to be able to discuss issues in an open forum, but I do think there is a shared value around freedom of speech. With that being said, I do want to share what I did share this morning, which was decorum has been used throughout history in the civil rights movement in particular to suppress folks that are fighting for their civil rights. Particularly around tone and tenor, as was shared previously from a member here. So I do think it's important that we look at how we do decorum. And I was also pretty troubled by some of the stories that community have shared around one of my colleagues' behavior out in the community. And I think this has been raised several times. We received some emails on that behavior, and I do think it does need to be addressed.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So I just wanted to close this community forum and say we, the mayor and council, plan an agenda and we flex on time because we believe in free speech. I know not everybody does that. There are some bodies that have limited time and don't, cut off how many people can sign up. We have not done that because we believe in free speech. We believe in the importance of democracy. I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their perspectives. I want to thank the residents for sharing their perspectives. I want to acknowledge the moment that we're in when we're looking at things nationally and seeing, things that are happening that are troubling. I do know that my colleagues do not have that intent. The intent is to try to create a safe place for everyone to be able to provide comment and for us to listen. And I know that there was some concern about what decorum means, and I think it's that the spirit of it is trying to create a safe place so that everyone has an opportunity to speak, no matter whether they agree with each other, with us, with staff. We sit and we listen, and that is what we're committed to continue to do. So I want to thank my colleagues, thank you staff, and thank you especially our residents. We are going to take a quick break. I want to thank everyone for being here with us, and I want to thank you for the patience for the Transportation Mobility Committee. Good evening, Rockville. Today is still September 29th, 2025. Thank you for your patience during our short break. We're now moving on to reconvening meeting 23-25 and moving on to consent agenda item 9A, appointments of Manisha Tiwari, Planning and Research Manager of Community Planning and Development Services as the Rockville representative to the Town Square Condominium Board, replacing the prior Deputy Director of CPDS. We have 9B, award and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Atkins Realis USA for the purchase of enterprise asset management and customer relationship management software and support. C, authorize the city manager to enter into a service agreement with the off-duty management to schedule, invoice, and provide reimbursements to the city of Rockville when off-duty Rockville City Police Department officers are hired to provide security services at events in the city of Rockville. And D, ratify and authorize the city manager to execute a Maryland State Art Council's grant agreement for grants for organizations for city-managed arts programs. 9E, approve the amended and restated memorandum of understanding with Montgomery County for transportation impact taxes for new development in Rockville. And then F, approval of minutes. I will turn to my colleagues to see if there are any items that need to be pulled. Councilmember Van Graag.
Madam Mayor, I just would like to pull for just a few questions, items B and C.
Okay, thank you. And is there any other? Okay, I just have one question also about the impact tax MOU. So that is item E. So with that said, let's open with questions so that we can just approve them all together. How about that? Since there's so many that are pulled. All right, Councilman Van Graag.
Mr. City Manager, with regard to item B, I know I read through it was in the packet. Everything seems to be in order, but I know this is also a pretty significant expenditure of over $600,000, and it's responsive to an RFP. Can you just kindly just inform us about the process of the RFP, how it went about, and how this contract was selected?
You bet. If it's okay, I'll also describe what you're purchasing. That might be helpful too. So,
I know that it was in our packet, but yes, that also is a helpful context. Thank you.
Actually, this is something that's been a long time in the making. It's really to take care of our people and to take care of our assets. Maybe I'll talk about the people first. Right now, it is a bit challenging for people to reach out to us to provide concerns, complaints, and ask questions without either dealing directly with staff or sending an email, et cetera. There's no automated system. And what we really need to create is a customer relationship management software system, and that's exactly what this does. It provides residents with the opportunity to ask questions, to make suggestions about things like potholes, et cetera, and for us to schedule those things, provide people with real-time updates, and to make sure all that work gets done. And more importantly, it allows us to look for trends to see if we need to do a little bit better job in some of those spaces. The asset management software is actually an ability for us to make sure we're taking greater care of our infrastructure. Right now, we have various spreadsheets and notebooks, et cetera, where we're keeping really handwritten records or into a spreadsheet where we really don't have a way to make sure that all of our assets, water lines, sewer lines, roadways, et cetera, have a way to meaningfully provide input to make sure that when we do maintenance, that we have good records, or when we need additional maintenance. So that's what those two software packages are about. We did follow our procurement process. We did go out for bid, and we were able to select one company that actually can provide both of those services in one.
And so therefore, it was more economical for the city to have essentially one contractor as opposed to multiple.
One contractor, and ultimately, both of these new services will provide actually savings for the city, so it'll pay for itself in a number of years.
Excellent. Madam Mayor, I have no more questions on this item.
Thank you. I have a question on item B, or more of a comment. So I will just note that asset management has been on the wish list of, I believe, staff for a number of years. I see some shaking heads, 15. And so I know that this was something that is a long time coming. I'm excited about the CRM. This body met to talk about strategic planning. And one of the things we want to do with the city is increasing sufficiency, increasing transparency. And it's my understanding with the CRM, you'll be able to track resident concerns and requests more carefully, and it'll be systematized, and people can see you submitted something, there's not a black hole, or you have to manually wait for staff to come back, but you can see where things are in the process. Is that correct?
That's correct. They'll get real-time updates.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Council might love that too.
Yep. Agreed.
But I just want to say there are so many residents who report a concern. It's still an available tool, and send things to us via email. So I think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to be more effective, efficient, and transparent government. So I appreciate the work on this, as well as the asset management. Did you have a question on C?
Yes, C. I just want to clarify something. I believe I interpreted from the documents, but I just want to clarify. This agreement that we're doing with off-duty management with regard to the police department is completely budget neutral, meaning that there is not going to be an impact to our budget with regard to how we impact that. Is that correct?
It's budget neutral, but it actually creates efficiencies and more opportunities for us to do other work, public safety work, instead of putting handwritten documents into a binder.
And so the other follow-up here is because I know this program and what we're trying to do more efficiently is a fantastic thing that the Rockville City Police Department does with regard to off-duty. Can you explain a little bit about this process and how, if the public wants to engage with the police department regarding this aspect, they can do so?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So there's many positive aspects for this. There are times when a business, a not-for-profit organization, et cetera, would have an event where they would love to have additional police services there. And instead of us having to try to cover that with overtime, et cetera, they can enter an agreement with the city through this software package so they can request officers to be on site, provide that security. This is a much more streamlined way to do it. It's automated. We can send invoices, et cetera. Second thing it does is it provides more opportunities for our officers to be out in the community. And then thirdly, it really provides candidly on officers with an opportunity on a voluntary basis to pick up some extra hours and frankly get some additional money for themselves and their family.
So if the public is interested about participating in that and trying to utilize this program, how would they go about doing so? What's the easiest way?
Yeah, they should send an email to the chief of police. Yep.
Whom I know is here,
Yes.
also in the audience. So thank you for being here, Chief.
Thank you. And I would just note it's been used for special events, sometimes also for stores who wanted additional security. So, and then you guys are manually doing everything. So this is going to be cost neutral, but take away the burden of having to invoice and manage receipts. So I appreciate that you're freeing up staff time so they can focus on public safety, but also not costing the city additional money. I had a question about, first of all, I just want to say kudos and thank you for the tax reimbursement, impact tax reimbursement MOU. As I mentioned earlier, it's 7 years in the making. I think it's very solid. The only question I have is we had an existing MOU where we were supposed to be reimbursed about $1 million. And so where will that stand in relation to the MOU so that we can make sure that Rockville is getting paid back for that?
Yeah, so this MOU replaces the old one. So it'll make it easier for us to receive payment for projects that we are seeking reimbursement, including the $1 million that we've been putting in for requests for reimbursement. So it'll happen very quickly after this is approved both by this body and the county council.
Thank you. And just for transparency, I believe it's a 65-35 split. So the city will get 65% for projects that happen to do transportation, and the county will get 35%. They will focus mostly on the BRT, is what I understand.
That's correct, which will significantly benefit the residents of the city of Rockville.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any more questions? I'm looking for Dr. Miles. Are you good? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to approve? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent items, consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Valeri seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our work session, and want to thank the Transportation and Mobility Commission for their patience. We will now hear their annual report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll bet you all saw me sitting there thinking I was going to talk about something else this evening, but here I am to talk about the Transportation and Mobility Commission. I'm Jeff Gantz. I'm a lifelong member of the City of Rockville, having been here, it'll be 58 years this November, and it is my pleasure and honor to serve on the Transportation and Mobility Commission under our amazing chair, Kathleen Kleinman, our other members, and the fantastic Brian Barnett Woods, who is just unbelievably amazing and such an asset to the city of Rockville. The Transportation and Mobility Commission, or the TMC, is a mayor and council appointed commission that focuses on walking, rolling, bicycling, transit, and driving in the city of Rockville. And we serve to provide guidance to the mayor and council and planning commission as it relates to multimodal transportation issues in the city. We have, over the past year, submitted comments and recommendations on many topics to the mayor and council and city and staff, in which those letters were part of your 340-page packet that you had for today's meeting. So hopefully you managed to see those among everything else that you had. But there are topics such as red light camera enforcement, transportation comments and considerations for the Rockville Metro Rail Station, residential parking permit areas, the regional roadway safety programs, funding for multimodal transportation improvements, the Congressional Lane Complete Street Study, and the East Jefferson Street and Halpine Road Bicycle Study and Design Project. We are Serving the city of Rockville, we are a dedicated, informed, resident-led commission that can provide the mayor and council with additional comments and recommendations from the community regarding a variety of transportation projects. We regularly hear from the community, from transportation enforcement policy experts, and are educated on current topics and actively participate in the city's transportation and Vision Zero projects. Our guiding principles are to increase accessibility for people of all abilities and expand multimodal facilities. And we focus on multimodal, safety, accessibility, transportation infrastructure for the community. Vision Zero is obviously a very important topic, vulnerable roadway users, and meeting needs for all types of travel and mobility is very important, not just to us, but to all of those in the city of Rockville. We seek our direction from the Rockville Mayor and Council, and we are committed to help Rockville build an inclusive and accessible transportation system for all users. We have chosen 2 items to focus additional efforts to help advance equitable and multimodal transportation in Rockville. The first focus area is to improve transportation policies related to land development. We've invited staff to discuss ongoing zoning ordinance rewrites, the comprehensive transportation review, Chapter 21 road code update, and continue to provide comments and suggestions to the city and mayor and council for better policy outcomes. And a second focus is to provide better guidance to improve transit use in the city. It includes tracking, providing guidance on Veers Mill Road and the 355 bus rapid transit projects. And one member of the TMC participates in the county citizen advisory committee for the 355 bus rapid transit project. And additionally, we look to identify improvement for local transit, including raising issues and considerations for the city to undertake to improve the experience for people using bus and rail transit. We regularly review city master plan drafts and large developmental applications, city projects, and we raise transportation-related concerns to the mayor and council. There are many projects on which we provided guidance. I won't go through them all, but they're in your list. You have a table there of the many projects that we have provided guidance on. And we also support the city's work program to seek and obtain external funding for transportation projects. And we've provided letters of support for many grant applications as well, which you also have in your packet, the projects or the grant opportunities that we have supported. We have 8 members on our commission at this time. We have our wonderful Councilmember Valeri, who is our current council liaison to the TMZ, and as I mentioned earlier, Brian Barnett Woods, who's a principal transportation planner for the Department of Public Works and is our current staff liaison. So prior to March 2023, we were known as the Traffic and Transportation Commission, and we were established by the mayor and council by resolution in 1972. And we were renamed to the Transportation Mobility Commission in 2023. In addition to changing the commission's name, the mayor and council did refine our responsibilities in ordinance number 423. I won't go through them all, but we do have quite a bit of responsibility as the commission. We meet the 4th Tuesday of every month. Meetings are normally held virtually at 7 p.m. In some instances, they are held in person here at City Hall. And residents and interested stakeholders are welcome to attend. Our meeting agenda, as well as the link for virtual attendance, are posted to the city's online agenda center and calendar prior to the meeting. All meetings do include a community forum agenda item. And Rockville residents and stakeholders are welcome to attend and raise transportation-related issues with the TMC. Other regular agenda items include updates on city transportation, capital improvement projects, ongoing transportation maintenance projects, and the work program of the Traffic and Transportation Division. We receive presentations from other city departments and agencies as well, including Community Planning, Development Services Committee, Rockville City Police Department, and lastly, we receive presentations from property development applicants if the subject development applications generate a certain threshold of new automobile trips consistent with the Comprehensive Transportation Review. I appreciate your time this evening, and again, very pleased to serve on this committee, and would like to once again thank Kathleen for her amazing job as chair for the years that I have been on the committee, and hopefully going forward as well. So, thank you.
Just want to say thank you very, very much for all the volunteer hours that you provide on behalf of our entire council. We have this set up as a special presentation, so if there are any questions, our colleagues send them to Mr. Mihalik. But Actually, hold on. Are we answering questions here? Hold on. Mr. Mihalik, do you want questions?
We can entertain a handful of questions since we have big items yet tonight. Yep.
Okay, great. And let's move to Councilman Valeri.
Way. Thank you so much. I am beyond honored to be the council, mayor and council liaison to the Transportation Mobility Commission. They are, and I'm not just saying that because they're here, but some of the hardest working volunteers in the city. And what always strikes me is the absolute breadth of knowledge and perspectives that the commission brings to the table. And, you know, I'm always kicking myself a little when I have to miss a meeting, because there's always been an opportunity to learn from the discussions, or to kind of see where their work connects to other aspects of the work. So I just want to add on to the kudos. Of course, eternal kudos and gold star as well to the staff liaison, Mr. Brian Barnett Woods, who is just an absolute rock star. So I have no doubt, you know, these are two rock star groups working together. When you kind of included in there, you know, ways that the mayor and council can kind of, you know, provide guidance or anything of that nature, there's something that kind of struck me when I was looking through, which, by the way, is one of the best annual reports that I've seen from a commission. It just kind of lays out everything you guys are working on. What I did note, and it might be a good place for the commission to look at what's going on and provide some feedback, would be to have this commission look at, as we progress in the King Farm Farmstead project, and you've heard here and we've heard that there are some concerns around, you know, maybe the level of parking, but maybe more so on mobility in and around the farmstead. I think that would be phenomenal to kind of get the feedback from the commission on that. That's my big one, but I just want to, I'll stop there and say thank you, as always, to the both of you and to the entire commission, and of course, Mr. Brian Barnett Woods. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief because I know we have to move on, but I just want to say thank you to Kathleen and other members of the commission. You know, I'm really pleased that you know, Rockville has embraced diversity, and when I say diversity, you know, walking is important, but also rolling and being in a wheelchair gives you a different perspective when you don't have the mobility that maybe others take for granted. And so Kathleen taking the chairmanship or chair of this committee is really important, because she gives a new perspective, and then is really a fierce advocate for you know, those who have various degrees of mobility. And so I really think that's important, because not a lot of cities have that, and have that perspective, and then take that perspective and advocate for it in the city. And so I thank you for that, and I thank the commission for that. And as has been said, Brian does a great job in being a good advocate and working with the committee, and then trying to take what is discussed and making it into reality. And I would be remiss to say that we do have one former member of the commission here, and Paul Scott. He's now the president of the King Farm Citizens Assembly, but before he was vice chair of the Citizens Assembly and was on the commission. And I know he did a lot of work for the commission. So thank you, Paul, for that. And with that, I'll yield back.
I will just bookend and say thank you again. We really, really appreciate it. I just wanted to also say two things. One is we're coming up on the state legislative session, and so really appreciate when our commissions share things that you want us to take a look at. We do have a formal process to review things, but I know some commissions really like to share suggestions with the mayor and council, and we'll be looking for that. And I just want to thank you for your advocacy and support on ADA. That's the American Disabilities Act. The city has been making a number of changes all throughout, and we're continuing to have discussion about a prioritization plan to make sure that we're making Rockville safe to walk, roll, bike, drive for everybody. So thank you again for all the hard work you have, and thank you to our staff as well. We have some very great, ambitious projects on Vision Zero, and I should also say there's transparency. You can see where we are and track our performance online. But I will just end with the most exciting thing I heard about the Vision Zero. There was a lot in there, but to have a street removed from the high injury network, where we know people have been injured, and not have that be the case now is life-changing. So thank you. Okay. Is there anything you want to say, Mr.?
Good evening. I'm Brian Barnett Woods, the Principal Transportation Planner with the Department of Public Works. I just wanted to thank Jeff Gans for taking the time and leading the presentation. I was happy to flip through the slides for him. I also want to recognize Chair Kleiman from the Commission is here, as well as Irene Bowen, Jerry Sishi, and then Paul Scott, who's mentioned, who's a former member. So thank you all for coming.
And since you have the mic, do you want to plug Walktober?
Sure. Next, I guess, in a couple days starts Walktober, which is the state's annual kind of recognition of pedestrian transportation in Maryland. The Maryland Department of Transportation has a series of webinars, which they're calling Walk-in-Ars, that people can watch each week. The city and the Rockville Pedestrian Advocacy Committee will be leading a community walk in the Twinbrook neighborhood on the 16th, and then there'll be a Vision Zero, or excuse me, a candlelight vigil for remembrance of victims of traffic violence on the 30th. And so we hope everyone can attend.
Thank you. Great work all around. We'll now be moving on to agenda item 12B, the King Farm Farmstead Master Plan. Did you get the videos I sent you? What? Did you get the videos I sent you on WhatsApp? No. Are we ready? Not yet? Okay. If you all need us to take a break, just let us know. Okay, well, I'd like to introduce Mike Stover, who's our consultant, as well as Tara Stewart, who's been very, very busy on all things recreation and parks. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I'm Tara Stewart, Director of Recreation and Parks, and we are excited to be back for tonight's work session to discuss the King Farm Farmstead Master Plan. There we go. Apologies. All right. So before you is an outline of what will be covered in tonight's session. We'll review the work session's purpose and expected outcomes, highlight the project's alignment with the mayor and council's guiding principles. We'll review areas that need your feedback regarding the master plan and our project's next steps. We'll also highlight the project's community engagement process and review the community's preferences for building uses and programs. And we'll review the mayor and council's direction from our last session, review refined building use concepts, and discuss the results of the cost construction estimation and operating cost analysis. Additionally, we hope to confirm your direction on which building uses will move forward to implementation, as well as confirm any recommendations you may have for finalizing the master plan. So the King Farm Farmstead project directly aligns with the mayor and council's core commitments and focus areas, including economic development, effective and efficient service delivery, public safety, and stewardship of the environment and infrastructure. During our work session this evening, we're looking for the following feedback from the mayor and council. Which dairy barn option do you recommend moving to the implementation phase? And that would be option 4, which includes the addition, or without the addition, which was option 2. Do you support phasing project implementation over the next 5 to 15 years? And do you support the proposed approach for phasing the projects? And we'll present 2 options later in the presentation. So over the last 11 months, the Department of Recreation and Parks has made great progress to move the project forward to include engaging the community in a process to identify their desired building uses and programs for the Farmstead Park. We launched this process with an initial work session in October 2024, followed by the development of a community engagement plan working with our communications and community engagement department. In January, we launched the King Farm Farmstead Engaged Rockville website, which served as our one-stop shop for all things King Farm related to the history of the site, as well as the city's work to date to assess and recommend uses for the park. At the same time, we also launched our outreach and communication using city resources to inform the community about the project and our engagement process. In the spring, we hosted 5 community visioning sessions to capture initial feedback regarding the desired programs and services, followed by 3 community filtering sessions hosted in May and June, where we presented potential building use options and programs based on the feedback that we received in the earlier visioning sessions. In July, we presented a project update and concept review work session. And since then, the preferred building use and program options were further reviewed using operational cost analysis and construction cost estimation. Tonight, we're here to present results of the analysis and cost construction estimation and to request the mayor and council's feedback to finalize the park's master plan. Our goal is to wrap up the current planning process with adoption of the master plan on October 20th. As mentioned, the project included a robust community engagement process with a goal of reaching as many residents living throughout the city as possible. In addition to our in-person and virtual sessions, we also collected community feedback via online and hard copy surveys and promoted info about the project via monthly email updates, as well as posting flyers and posters in city buildings. During the community engagement process, residents shared their preferences for building uses and programs to be offered at the farmstead. This included incorporating a multi-purpose hall to host a variety of events and programs, multi-purpose rooms for community meetings, smaller events and classes, spaces for wellness opportunities, arts and technology and makerspaces, a community teaching kitchen, and spaces for childcare, youth, and teen programming. We presented 4 options for building uses, which ranged in implementation impact from minimum to high intervention. The community responded most favorably to option 4, which was high intervention, and option 2, medium intervention. This next slide just visually demonstrates some of the community's feedback around options 2 and 4 for the dairy barns. with option 4, which included the addition taking the lead in the community's votes. For the horse barn, the preferences were to provide additional flexible and multi-use spaces that can possibly hold wellness programming, events, or rehearsal spaces for arts groups. For the tenant houses and garage, the preferences were for these buildings to be used as community maker spaces. And finally, the farmhouse was proposed to be used for childcare. During our last work session, we received the following feedback from the mayor and council. Incorporate arts, culture, and education, honoring and highlighting the farmstead's history. Prioritize flexible and accessible spaces with the highest potential for community use. Explore options for utilizing the farmhouse for childcare. Preserve the existing community gardens and expand opportunities for more gardens throughout the city. Activate existing green spaces and overall connectivity to buildings and structures. And demonstrate fiscal responsibility utilizing a phased approach for project implementation. So now we're going to turn the presentation over to Mike Stover from our consultant team, Design Collective, to review refined building concepts, operational cost analysis, and estimated construction costs for the buildings and structures.
Hello. Thank you. Hello. Yes, I'm going to start with introducing our new plan. So we started with the option 4 and developed that further based on the comments we received in the last work session. In this option, you can see we moved the daycare to the farmhouse as requested. The garage and tenant houses are dedicated maker spaces. The horse barn was proposed to be a multi-purpose hall as well as contain 2 smaller multi-purpose rooms on one end. We combined that also with the tenant house to use the tenant house as utility space, the bathrooms, some storage, things like that, so that we can maximize the multi-purpose space within the horse barn itself. And then the dairy barns, there's a lot going on there. I'm going to get into the dairy barns in more detail as we go on. So this slide, we wanted to address the historic approach to the site. History was stressed over and over again by the community, and we want to make sure that we address it. We are at a very high level right now, and some of the historic approach will be at a finer level of detail, but we want to look at this kind of at the broad stroke. And the idea here is that we designate a historic corridor along the driveway, focusing any intervention that would be along that corridor, minimizing the impact of those interventions only to things that need be there to meet code requirements. The areas on the opposite side of the building would then give potential for larger interventions for improvements that are needed for function as well as other higher accessibility and other requirements needed to make the buildings useful. On this slide, we have the site plan of the farmstead. And one of the things we want to stress here is the access or the how Elmcroft terminates on the dairy barns right now. We think this has great potential for connectivity to the community, but right now it's a large berm and not very accessible. In this plan, we're proposing access, both a stair and a ramp for access to the dairy barns from this side of the building. We also want to address concerns about parking. We've heard some of that earlier today, and right now we are just proposing options, and these things can be addressed in the future, but we didn't want to ignore the fact that parking is important, so we've addressed it here with 2 options. So let's go through the buildings. So the farmhouse, converting it to
daycare will use the first and second levels. There'll be a playground that's required as part of the daycare that will have to be located. Accessibility, including a ramp, elevator, and accessible bathrooms are all required to make the farmhouse function as a daycare. So a new configuration will be needed for the space. The tenant houses in the garage are considered for maker spaces. The tenant house, we're considering the clean maker space, so that would be more maybe technology based, and the garage would be the dusty, dirty maker space. And both of them will require envelope and accessibility and code improvements. The horse barn we discussed earlier, and we have a little perspective here to kind of show you what it would be from the outside and how the addition would be set back so that the historic elevations of the horse barn and the tenant house would be prominent. And here we just have a small glass vestibule in between the two buildings so that they can be connected and function together. All these would have to be approved, reviewed and approved by the Historic District Commission. This is just a proposal now, and it will have to go for review. And here we get a view of the inside. The horse barn currently has, I think it's like a 13 by 13 column grid. So that limits the functionality of the horse barn as it is currently. In this proposal, we're doing a free span A-frame structure that will enable multiple uses within a larger space. Okay, the dairy barns. Now, in the previous one, we had daycare in the dairy barns. That's been relocated, and in that place, we've located art studios on the north bar. Can you see my cursor? Is that possible? No? Okay. All right, I'll just have to describe it. Then the addition has been added to the east side of the courtyard. That multi-purpose hall has also been extended into the dairy barns, opening up that two-story space into the northern dairy barn. The kitchen has been located in between the multi-purpose room on the backside where those two spaces can function together, as well as the kitchen also support the multi-purpose hall. And it also has a connection to the courtyard so that all those spaces can function together. Here we have an auditorium space. It's a small auditorium space. It would seat about 100 people with this stage that could be removable. And then on the second floor, we have multi-purpose rooms. These multi-purpose rooms connect to the visually to the end, also with a stair down to the multi-purpose hall, and also are connected to the multi-purpose auditorium. So I'm just going to kind of give you a 3D view of the dairy barns now with the addition. So this is the first floor, and we've used the same color code that we used in the plan so you can get an idea of the spaces and how they're all connected and work together. Here's the second floor, and you can see how the auditorium space flows up into the second floor multi-purpose space and how the multi-purpose space can look down into the auditorium. And the yellow bar there is a bridge that connects both sides of the dairy barn wings. Currently, they're not connected, and to make both wings function, they would both need to have elevators. This helps the circulation, and it also allows us to do it all with one elevator. And this, I want to explain the addition and then also the dormer. You'll see later in one of the perspectives what the dormer does for our second floor space. The addition is highlighted in green here. You can see that it's located on the east end of the courtyard, and the dormer is on the north bar facing the courtyard, so internal to the building, so it's less visible and not on one of the historic corridor elevations. And this is a view from inside the courtyard looking at the addition. The auditorium space is to our right, and the dormer and the second story space is on our left. For everyone's reference, the orange arrow in the plan is where you're standing, and it fans out and fades out, so the view that you're seeing for everyone's. Next slide shows an image of the auditorium space. So we're in the southwest corner of the auditorium looking out. You can see here the second floor has been removed so that we get a taller, grander space, and the seating terraces up to the second floor. This is standing inside the north wing of the dairy barn, looking across the new addition over to the other side of the southern dairy barn in the distance. And you can see the bridge on our right-hand side. And here we are in the second floor multi-purpose space. The dormer is what's enabled us to have these windows on this floor. Without the dormer, it would be like we have on the left-hand side. There wouldn't be a possibility of windows, and it would be kind of a darker space. It would also be a smaller footprint because the ceiling height where those windows are now would be too low, and so by opening up that dormer, we get both daylight and we also get more usable space on the second floor. And here's the view from Elmcroft looking up. I think anybody who's been to King Farm knows that has a nice axis right onto the dairy barns right now, and you can see that hill is pretty steep. So we've added that walkway, and that's included in the budget proposal, with a ramp that goes up to a terrace and a potential entrance from this side directly to the community. All right, so we're going to get into the economic analysis. The analysis started by identifying constraints, and currently the parking on site is the major constraint on the number of activities or occupants that can be on site. The schedule is then subject to the parking availability. So then event potential, how many people can come for events, is also reliant on parking. Event and class fee potential was estimated for this approach, and adjustments were based on seasonality and periods of less enrollment. Staffing was assumed to be adjusted based on the scale of activity, and operating expenses are allocated by building. We use all that then to determine our cost recovery ratios. So we have three different scenarios. The first scenario is based on the existing parking, which includes 47 spaces. And in this scenario, we are assuming that the farmhouse, the horse barn, and the tenant houses and garages are up and running in this first scenario, because that's what the 47 spaces allows. That was a question earlier, and that's why that is limited in this version. Limited parking added, so if 44 spaces were added to the site for a total of 91, that assumes that the dairy barn could have a smaller event capacity. That would also include the previous things, the farmhouse, the horse barn, tenant houses, and garages were up and running. And then the third scenario is with expanded parking. So that is assuming that we can get another 100 to 120 spaces for events, where the dairy barns would be able to have their full capacity at that point. So with our existing parking, you can see here our utilization. We have 12 classes, 14 weekend classes. The events are 0 in this because our parking is limited. And I guess the weekend events are at 360, and then summer camps are at 10 weeks. I can go through each one, but you guys can read as well. But limited parking, we increased to 21 because the parking allows it. Then the weekend classes go up to, are still at 14. The weekend events can increase because of the increased parking. And actually, I'm not sure where the
Just
weekend.
have one quick point of clarification. This does not factor in parking at Mattie Stepanek Park, or
No.
is only factoring the 47?
No, it only factors the parking on site.
Okay, and you don't anticipate using the parking at Mattie Stepanek Park?
I think by zoning, we are required to have on-site parking, but I think, I mean, that could be considered.
That's no problem. Thank you. I just want to clarify that. I appreciate that.
So as you can see, in general, utilization increases as the amount of parking increases because we can have more activities on site. That's the general gist of this. So because the activity is able to increase, you can also see through the scenarios that the direct cost recovery also increases as activities increase as well. All right, here's our summary page for the cost estimate. The cost estimate is much more detailed, but this is our summary. In here, we've identified costs per building, and we also have an additional sum for site work. I should stress that the site work is a minimum. We did not look into the actual landscape design for the site, and that will be more than this when it's all said and done. This process is mainly focused on the buildings, but we also wanted to let you know that the site work, even for the buildings, will have a requirement. So on the left, we have the costs for option 4. That includes the existing building, I'm going to talk about the dairy barns first. The existing building, the addition is an additional $2 million, and then the terrace. So that ramp and stair that we showed at the termination of Elmcroft to get people up onto the terrace or the terrace is that $525,000 there. And the option without the addition, you can see that we have the existing building would be about the same. We would not have the addition, but to enable that connection between the second floor, we've included a bridge. That would be just a bridge about 6 feet wide. It has walls on either side, so it would be conditioned, but that would connect the second floors. The horse barn, that is as it was described in the plans. So that's the barn and the tenant house connected with the addition. And then the tenant house, the garage, farmhouse, and I've already described the site work. There are figures for parking lots in that for C and D included in that. And I should say that C is thought to be a permanent parking space, but D would be reinforced turf so that it would remain looking like grass from the outside, but it could be used for events on weekends. It's a plastic reinforcement that allows the grass to allow for parking, but it's not meant for daily use. It's really just for occasional use. Okay. So those costs are construction costs only, and here we have our assumptions and exclusions. Escalation, so inflation and things like that, that's not included right now. These are costs of currently right now. Soft costs are excluded. That includes your design fees, and then soft costs like furniture and different other things that are FF&E that are required. Your contingency, and for a project like this, because there are so many unknowns with an adaptive reuse, the contingency is a bit higher than a typical new construction project, but we think that it's safer to be conservative on that. Hazardous materials, there's probably definitely going to be lead paint on site, and we don't know with the garage if there could be anything else, so that would need to be further investigated. Permit and development fees, utilities. The main utilities, electricity, water, and sewer, have been brought within 10 feet of the buildings. Telecommunications, I think, is still to be determined. But even with that, there are small fees for that kind of connection, depending on where the services need to be. Road work, that's not included. And then, like I mentioned before, we do have a rough estimate for some of the work for site, but there most likely will be more costs in that are not included in this currently.
All right. So we're going to talk through a couple of project phasing options. So this first option, we've included specific buildings, estimated project costs, and the programs and services that would be activated with each phase. These costs do include the estimated design, construction, and the construction contingencies that Mike just talked about, just to represent closer costs. We did our best to prioritize the community's use of the buildings and the current need to address the stability of the horse barn. With project phasing option 1, we recommend implementing improvements to the farmhouse and the horse barn with tenant house 1 addition within the first phase. So that would be FY 27 through 31. The estimated cost is about $5.4 million and would position the city to offer childcare in the farmhouse and community meetings and events, wellness classes, and summer camps within the horse barn. For the second phase, we recommend implementing improvements to the garage and tenant house 2, along with developing the second asphalt paved parking lot to bring 44 parking spaces to the site to support additional makerspace programming. The estimated cost for that phase would be $1.6 million. The final phase focuses on implementing improvements to the dairy barns and grass paved parking capabilities within the open space area. The dairy barns will include the arts and tech studios, multi-purpose rooms and hall for community meetings, classes, and events, a community kitchen, and offer a smaller performing arts space. Estimated cost for this phase would be $10 to $12 million, depending on which dairy barn option is selected. So this next slide just provides a visual representation of the 3 phases that I just spoke about. The red shaded area represents phase 1, which would be the farmhouse and horse barn with the tenant house addition. The yellow shaded area represents phase 2, which is the garage, tenant house 2, and asphalt paved area for additional parking. And the green area represents phase 3, the dairy barns, and the additional grass paved area. And I failed to mention, out of the 2 options, we do recommend option 1 over option 2, but we'll get into the details of option 2 now. With project phasing option 2, we recommend implementing the improvements to the farmhouse, garage, and tenant house 2 within the first phase. That would be FY 27 through 31. Estimated cost is $4.2 million. And will position the city to offer childcare in the farmhouse and maker spaces in the garage and tenant house 2. For second phase, we recommend implementing improvements to the horse barn and developing the second asphalt paved parking lot to bring the additional 44 parking spaces to the site to support the additional horse barn programming and events. The estimated cost for this phase would be $2.9 million. The final phase focuses on implementing the dairy barns, and that price remains the same, $10 to $12 million, depending on which option the mayor and council selected for the dairy barns. And the next slide shows you the visual representation of those phases. Red shaded area represents phase 1. Yellow shaded area represents phase 2, and the green area represents the final phase. So to review our timeline and what will happen next, we will receive feedback and recommendations from the mayor and council regarding your preferences and priorities for phasing the project implementation. And this information will be compiled and included in the master plan report, which is scheduled for October 20th adoption. So with that, it's time for our work session to capture the body's feedback on the following questions. Our first question: which dairy barn option do you recommend moving to the implementation phase? And that would be option 4 with the addition, or without the addition, which would represent option 2.
Thank you very much for the outstanding presentation. I also want to thank that community who provided feedback, a lot of it over many, many sessions, organizations, community members from across the city. And I love that you went to King Farm, you went southern part of the city, western part of the city. So I just think that it was a fantastic experience in terms of how we can do community feedback and input. I have just three clarification questions before I can answer these questions, and I'm going to wait and let my colleagues go first. But for overarching clarification questions. First, well, one is a comment. I really appreciate that you got HDC and Rec and Park feedback. I don't know if you could just give us the input on what you heard from them in terms of any preferences. So that's my overarching question 1.
Yep, so I can summarize that the Historic District Commission was obviously very concerned about making sure that the history of the site is highlighted, that we are preserving the historic look of the buildings, and that they are involved in the process, whether that is as we get to the design phase, and anything that is proposed to affect the exterior of those buildings will have to go through Historic District Commission review and approval. So it was just sharing with them the information that we shared during the July 14th work session, and letting them know that we would be back for engagement with them as the process moves along and as required.
Okay, and thank you. The second thing is the question about the parking. That can come through conversation, but I was just curious, why not be able to use Maddie Stepanek Park, because there's a lot of parking there.
Right. So in our discussions about parking on the site, we first wanted to, we heard some feedback from the community at our last session that there was concern about like parking along the streets that line the farmstead, and that they wanted us to minimize that as much as possible. So we tried to look at the site and prioritize what could be done at the site to support the programming there. While Maddie Stepanek is very close to the King Farm farmstead, it still requires a walk. And we wanted to have that be sort of the secondary overflow if we needed to use it, but not, plan the project around relying on parking at Maddie Stepanek. We wanted to make it as convenient for those individuals that are taking classes on the farmstead or attending events there as possible, because they will be subject to rain, snow, freezing temperatures. That's just the reality of the weather in our area. So we wanted to make it as convenient as possible.
Thank you for that. And then the last clarification question, so that my colleagues have the same information that I do. Last term, when we were looking at the horse barn, there was a budget of $5.8 million initially shared with us, and then a $4 million budget shared with us, and it was included in the FY 2024 budget brief book, the budget book, for example. So I was just curious how the numbers could go down in a time of escalating cost and inflation. It just seemed like and that may impact how we think about phasing. So I wanted to make sure all my colleagues have the same information as we talk that through.
Thank you, Mayor. From my understanding, there was a change from numbers that were included in the FY24 projected budget, which was about $5.8 million, as you mentioned, and there was removal of projected fit-out costs because there had not been an identified use confirmed yet. So those costs were about 1.8 million that was removed from the project. And what was actually approved in FY24 was a little over 4 million. It was like 4.07. So that included the rebuild of the barn. It included mechanical, electrical, plumbing estimates at the time, as well as built-in escalation since the assessment was done in 2014. So that's how that number, it also included design, construction contingencies. So that's how that number got to the 4 million. So that's the difference between the 5.8 from proposed budget to 4 million at adopted.
That makes a lot of sense, but what was included in our budget, in our brief book for tonight, is that we could get all this done for 2 million for the horse barn, right?
So that is just construction cost. It does not include, so there was a page within the presentation that highlighted the exclusions, and that included design contingency, construction contingency. So that number that you're seeing there, the 2 million, is just for construction. So we'll have to include escalation costs, estimated at about 5% per year, as well as include the design and construction contingencies on top of that.
So with $2 million, you're estimating that it can be a functional and usable facility, but we excluded all these other costs, so it might actually be 4. We don't.
Yes, it's probably, yes. Once we add in all of those additional numbers, it will be closer to the 4. And we have requested, going into preparing the final master plan, that those figures be adjusted to include the 5% escalation cost, as well as the design and construction contingencies, so those numbers are a little bit more truer to what you can expect to spend.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I will just note that Dairy Barn has had the most work, and it's been shored up. So there's likely, we don't know what we're getting into on the others, so I just wanted to note that for my colleagues.
Yes.
Councilmember Fulton.
Thanks. Again, the mayor touched on one of my questions, but I want to make sure I fully understand. Question number 1 about the parking. What is our level of optionality on parking? Like, so is it coming from the zoning ordinance where it's required on-site parking, or could we decide that that is in a neighborhood, there's a lot of transit nearby, Madison Park is nearby, we think we could get by with less parking? I want to understand the optionality there.
So I may take a swing at that one, if that's okay. It's actually a combination of the two. It doesn't matter if it's a public building or a private building. We're supposed to provide X amount of parking available exclusively to the use of the building, right? You can get credits for shared parking spaces. You can also get credits for having parking that's remote by using what some folks have suggested, and that's shuttling and things of that nature. But we still have to have a certain amount of exclusive parking for each of these buildings that we're renovating and intensifying the use.
So I'm gonna push one. I get that, and I'm not saying we wouldn't have any, but I'm just like, those requirements derive from the zoning which we decide, right?
Correct.
So we do have some optionality there if we really wanted to exercise it.
Some limited, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Second question, just so I can clarifying to help answer these questions. In both of the options, we have the dairy barns in phase 3. Help me understand why that is so I can evaluate the options.
So I'll start with the first option. Let me go back so I can show that to you. Okay, so the way we phase this, we tried to prioritize items that are rather critical. So like the horse barn had some shoring up done in 2019, but it's still not a structurally sound building, and we have some concerns about how long we let that building remain in that condition. So that's why we prioritize that building. We also know that childcare is a priority for the mayor and council, and we felt like starting with those 2 buildings gave multiple options for the community. It provides childcare for families. It also activates the horse barn with to be able to serve all ages with wellness programming, with summer camps, with events, classes as well. So we prioritize those buildings first. The garage and the tenant houses really could go in any direction, but we needed to kind of spread the cost out as well. The dairy barns are the most expensive, and we really wanted to be thoughtful about that. And we're going to have to work with our finance team on strategies for funding the project, and building some time to be able to generate that funding or build that funding plan is why we phased it in the way that we did.
It's really helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Councilman Van Grack.
So first and foremost, I want to echo my colleagues' comments. What you guys have done with regard to reaching out to the community is as efficient, as broad as I think we've seen in the city. And I know that the entire mayor and council has really focused on community engagement and the degree to which, whether it's online availability with virtual meetings all over the city, the feedback that you can actually send and give it has been tremendous. And I've heard from people all over the city the degree to which you have made sure that if someone wants to comment, they've done so. And what I also appreciate is not just that you had these, you have continually brought before us the results of what the community wanted, which has helped guide our decision. So fantastic work and fantastic work of getting it together. I want to kind of shift to some of the things that already my colleagues have talked about. The first issue is exactly kind of hinting at what Councilmember Fulton was talking about. And that's kind of the horse barn versus the dairy barn. Because my understanding is, and I think I discussed this when we were talking about it last time we were addressing these issues, is the horse barn needs to be almost completely raised and rebuilt. Meaning that among the structures that we've got here, it's the most intense of what we have to do it. And in looking at the figures, I was also looking at what the mayor was talking about the last time this was brought before it. To me, like a $5 to $6 million endeavor when you are raising and building up seems much more appropriate. And if we're looking now at just under $2 million, just as you said, seems vastly low. And I'm concerned about us starting with that effort because I've even suggested, and I'm not necessarily committed to this, given what we already have to know that we have to do for the dairy barns and that we've got a parking condition, is it even viable for us to look at the farm, the horse barn, as something that we don't necessarily build, but we've got green space and costs that are significant here, and we're talking about completely raising a building and building it back up, which is extremely cost intensive because my understanding is it's not just building it up because we're trying to build it up to historic specifications that are required with the historic building. Kind of going to kind of Councilmember Fulton's kind of perspective, I understand that with the minimal cost that we're trying to do here with the early phases versus pushing off the more intense phasing, the dairy barn, I also think it seems to me that the dairy barn has the most universal usability with already investments from the city going forward. And it seems from the phasing, we're not even looking to break ground until potentially 2037 on the most universally used facility here. Was there a thought of kind of switching this around and looking at the dairy barns, but pushing the horse barn, which again has to be completely raised, and some of these other aspects, getting it done, and especially considering that we're talking about a 5% per year increase. If we're holding off on the dairy barns, which is a pretty construction cost intensive, 5% of $10 to $12 million is significant. Was there any rationale of flipping it kind of similar to what Councilmember Fulton was thinking about?
So the quick answer is you absolutely could. You could flip it. As Tara mentioned, I really think we were concerned about the farmhouse and just the matter we want to preserve it so it doesn't fall down. It's in pretty rough shape, so we thought that should get done right away. Having said that, council could move any one of these phases, any of these components, and mix and match and do whatever you want. This was our best efforts of trying to get some good bang for your buck we're really focusing on what's on the bottom of the slide, which are really the actual uses that support the community. You know, childcare, daycare, you guys have talked about a lot. You also heard about maker spaces at some point. That's a middle phase. You could push that out. You could move 3 to 2 and 2 to 3 if you guys want. So we're just trying to provide you guys some manageable chunks in terms of building this out, but you guys could move these around however you see fit. And we would just have to come up with a way to finance this over a number of years.
Okay, so just 2 more questions. One, which is a quick one, which is a little more intense. The first quick one is, I know there was discussion in almost every presentation you put forward, and even on the descriptions with regard to the use of the columns. And I know that in some of the options, we were going to use those tall cylinders with some type of use. Yet I note that in what we're looking here, there doesn't seem to be use. And there were some really ingenious ideas that we were putting forward. Is that part of the plan that we're looking for, or are we excluding that really in the build out of what we're looking here?
So I may ask Mike to support me on this one, but as proposed right now, the concepts do not address a use of the silos, those cylinders on either side. Doesn't mean that we couldn't figure out a use for them in the future, but as of right now, we have not proposed a use for them in the current concepts.
Then because obviously they're kind of next to and connected, are we looking to shore them up? Because the last thing we need is them falling up on it. What is, because I think that if we're actually building this, we've also got them. And even if we're not utilizing them with some internal climbing structure or arch structure that I know you had proposed, is the cost of shoring them up structurally included in what's being proposed?
No, we don't have that included currently, but we can add that, a cost for that.
I mean, I'm assuming to preserve the construction that we're doing, we're going to want to make sure these tall cylinders are not potentially at risk of falling, right?
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, all right. And then finally, I know it's going to be a concern you're going to hear from, I'm sure, everybody on here with regard to parking. And I know I've heard from community members on kind of diametrically opposed. A lot of people say, we've got green spaces, which I know is utilized by the community all over. By the same vein, I've heard from neighbors who are close to the farmstead that are worried about clogging up their ability to parking. I know that you've done a really good effort of trying to see what we're going to look at for parking, and it seems like from your answers to my colleagues that you have really looked at the surrounding areas as best you can. And is your numbers that you're putting here for parking a full kind of understanding of both the impact that it would do, but also trying to see if there's any other options?
Yeah, so we looked at parking very intently. Several of you have kind of flagged to us that, hey, parking's an issue here, and it has been over the years. So we took a really hard look at it. That's why, as you look at the plan here, we're recommending to phase the parking in over time. The existing parking that was built recently, then going forward with a limited asphalt parking lot, and then going with grass paving. And in addition to that, using shuttles, using Manny Stepanek, the idea of using Shady Grove. I mean, potentially we could have a partnership with WMATA on that. I think at build out, if you look at, again, the bottom of the slide, if we have all those uses built out over time, we are going to need parking, both on site, immediately adjacent, and through shuttles, and sometimes using shuttles off site to make sure we can use it all. But parking is needed if we're going to intensify the use in a meaningful way.
Okay, I have a few other questions, but I know my colleagues are chomping at the bit.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, my colleagues, Van Grack and yourself, Mayor, and Councilmember Fulton have asked many that I wanted to ask. But first, I just want to back up and say thank you for all the work. Both the report, which I know is a lot of work and a lot of numbers and so much information. I mean, it's we're drowning in information, and that's a good thing because we need all the information we can get to make a good decision on the farmstead. And so I'm going to bounce around a little bit and probably not ask every question that I have because as Councilmember Van Grack, I want to leave questions for my colleagues. But let me just back up for a second because this is not a process that started last year or even this year. This was a process 30 years in the making. I mean, we had study, we had task force, we had consultants reports, we had many prior council debates. And unfortunately, it just never went anywhere. I think they had good intentions, but what always seemed to trip people up was aspirational goals, unrealistic goals, and then the cost and for the build out, and the parking tripped them up, and the reports set on the shelf. And I really don't want to see that happen this time. I really, just speaking for myself, I mean, 30 years is enough. It's time to get this done. And we need to be careful. And what I've heard so far it is realistic, but it's kind of creeping a little bit into aspirational. And so we just need to be careful about that because, aspirational kills on something like the farmstead. And what we need to do is get something done cost effectively, but also quickly. And, I know that there are structures that you want to focus on. And I know that you say that some of them need attention before others, but I would just say, we have really good structures and we've put money into the dairy barns. And I just feel like, those are the ones that we can move into quickly if we don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so I know we haven't even talked about it, but if there's some way that we could stage it so that we actually use one dairy barn before the other, I think that would be realistic as well. Now, I know there might be issues there, but I'm just saying, we need to use imagination to get this done sooner rather than later. And I'm concerned about the timeline that we have. I mean, 15 years is going to be 45 years, until we use some of these structures, which, I know it might seem realistic, but it seems to me and to many residents that that's just really long time for something that should have been done a long time ago. It's not your fault, but that is where we are. It was a stipulation, and I know you know this, that the farmstead be used for parks and recreation. And I think that's some of what the concern that you've heard tonight and from people at Community Forum and others is they're really concerned about the green space. And, I know that parking is a concern, but the real underlying thing is they really want to maintain the green space that they have and make it functional, usable, but also maintain the green space because let's face it, the green spaces around Rockville are few and far between and lessening somewhat each year as we develop more and more. So, if we can conserve some of that green space, I think that's what the concern is from the residents. So on to my questions, and now that I've had a soapbox. You don't mention it, but I just want to make kind of delve into it a little bit because I know that there's concern with the residents. Do you propose to open up the farmstead along Grand Champion, or just have entrance and exits on Maryland 355? So was that the Farmstead Drive? Do you propose to open it up to the Grand Champion, or just leave it alone, leave it blocked off, and have entrance and exit on Maryland 355?
For the parking lot, are you
Yeah,
referring to
or
pedestrian or?
I don't even
car
want to
traffic?
talk about the parking lot right now, but just to have cars, I guess, come in through Maryland 355 and exit Maryland 355, or are you proposing that you're going to open up the entrance by the picnic area to cars so they can go in and out and park at the parking lot? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question while you're pulling? It's not easy to get to the parking lot either from one side to the other, right? From a car perspective.
So
Yeah.
the existing lot, the 47 space lot, you
Yes.
enter from 355.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the 44 spaces. But
Right,
even,
we
I
would-
mean, even if we don't, let's say we don't build that, but do you propose that people can enter and exit on Grand Champion, or is there only going to be on Maryland 355?
Yeah.
Good.
So the parking lot is only, the existing parking lot, which is labeled F on the plan here, is only accessible from Frederick Road.
Yeah, no, I know that, but
So
C.
if C were built, then yes, it would want to be accessible from Grand Champion, from the road on the back.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I would tell you, I think that's another concern about for residents, because there would be increased traffic, plus you would be building the parking lot, so there'd be kind of a double whammy there. Now, the terrace, which I think looks fantastic, but you only propose it under one option rather than under both options. So why is that?
It could be included in the other option separately. You just take that number and add it to the other option.
So when you have the terrace, did you also take into account, I know we don't want parking on Grand Champion, that's a given, but if you have the terrace and you have the ramp, what about parking down on Ridgemont?
Yeah, I believe there could be parking on Ridgemont, yes.
So I will not ask too many more questions because I wouldn't be cognizant of other people needing to speak. But I would say this. I mean, I like the plan, and there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of changes to the plans as we go through this. But I just would challenge one thing. And it's the parking, because I think that you guys have used a lot of imagination to come up with a plan for using the farmstead space for what do you use it for, and then how you're going to phase it, and then the cost. And we haven't even got to how we pay for it, which is another discussion entirely. But I would just say that when we're talking about parking or walking, pedestrian uses, bicycling, transit, that we need to take the same imagination that we've shown in putting together the plan and put it towards the parking situation, or just how people can access the site. And, I know Jeff mentioned using WMATA, using shuttles, whatever we have to do. And I would just challenge you guys to come back with a robust plan to move people in and out that just doesn't just rely on parking, because we have a lot of the city that wants us to do more with climate change, with preserving green space. And I think that while it's easy to say, hey, we're going to have parking, I think we need to challenge ourselves and figure out other ways to get people to and from what we want them to do without building parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Valeri.
Yes, hi. Thank you all for this. This is a fantastic overview, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. I first want to start off with to echo Councilmember Van Grack, the intentionality to reach out to the neighborhoods also farthest from King Farm was absolutely noted by communities and neighborhoods in the southern part of the city. I think perhaps in other times it would not have been seen as vital, but what it made everybody feel, from what I've heard and feedback from residents from east to west in the southern part of the city, is that they all feel very invested in what happens there now. And I don't know necessarily if the intentionality had not been there, if they would. So I want to give a shout out and a kudos to you on that. I attended the one at in Twinbrook, and yeah, it felt different than other things. So I want to say thank you. I agree with Councilmember Jackson on his point, very well made, on the length of time of this project. Again, with all things being equal, and I know that there are a lot of big, weighty conversations ahead of us, things like funding. But I think that I think realistically, given some of our large phased-in projects that are occurring in other parts of the cities, that I could absolutely see that time period being shrunk down. But again, I understand, as we're kind of thinking through things. I will also like ditto, triple ditto, I don't even know at this point, the concerns about around the proposed approach to parking. Probably surprising no one. I don't, I don't see the approach here is such a modern, engaging, and inviting design, but then we fall back on very mid-century parking standards. And I think if the zoning, to Councilmember Fulton's point, if the zoning is the issue, well, it's not, because we've actually done parking waivers. So is that a possibility? Perhaps. I'm curious, I'm always curious about how the formulas are created to say, yes, this many spots are needed to support an event of this many people. Given that, I think, and I'm sure our transportation and traffic and transportation engineers have heard me say this many times, people's mode of transportation is really shifted in a way that the transportation rules have not. So, and especially like I've done a lot of walking around King Farm because I am a professional pedestrian, and there are a lot of people, from all corners of King Farm who are walking around King Farm. You have a ton of people biking around, and I don't know if they all live at King Farm. I'm just noting how many people bike, But I have utilized public transit from the far south of the city to get to King Farm, and it's quite, I mean, especially now that some of the buses are free, it's very affordable and actually pretty fast as well. So um, I echo Councilmember Jackson. I would definitely put the challenge back that we look at as a modern approach around parking as we are to the actual physical buildings. And we want to be supportive and find creative solutions. I don't think that adding surface parking lots is that sort of modern thinking that we want to get to. So that's enough on that. I also, and I would be remiss as somebody who has taken the opportunity to wander around the community garden when nobody's there. I am just, it is a phenomenal space. And I think it's actually a missed opportunity to some sort of placemaking on the site. If that was not highlighted in some way, that is not going to be detrimental to the existing plantings. So working with, the community garden folks, like what are their current challenges? What is something that could be done to really elevate it as an actual component of this larger farmstead, right? Like, it's a nice kind of throwback to the use of the farm as it was. And so I think that there's some creativity that we can do there. I also absolutely agree on, what's the nice way to put it, on the dairy barn option, and really kind of moving that up, recognizing that we also want to do a phase-in approach and really allow for folks to see progress being made. But I see, in looking between the horse barn and the dairy barn, that the possibilities there are significant. And I do have a question tucked in here, I swear. And that would be, when we were looking at the exclusions list on the costs, for the horse barn, is the exclusions include things like the costs associated with demolition and any sort of environmental mitigation? Okay. So I would be curious about that for sure. Seeing as, in the 2014 property condition assessment, it was recommended demolish and reconstruct. So if that is still the intent, demolition being the first part of that, and if we're all concerned about the safety of that, then I would see that as being the first step there, and seeing the costs around that would be helpful. But at any rate, I really do, I agree with my colleagues who have spoken so far on many of their points, but I really did want to speak to the parking and to the elevation of the community garden there, so.
Thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead. Sorry, go
You
ahead.
want me, I was just going to answer. Yeah, demolition is included in the cost.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, so demolition is included, but maybe not environmental mitigation, or?
Yeah, that was a good question. I would think that in the demolition cost, there would be treatment that would keep the dust down, so keep the lead contained. I would think that would definitely be, there's probably lead paint on the building.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's any further contamination, say like oil in the ground, that would not be included. That would be in the exclusion.
An additional
Yeah.
cost. Thank you, and I apologize. I'm like so quick to turn my mic off. I would also hope then too that as this process goes forward, that any sort of unintended consequence of that sort of mitigation would not also impact the community garden, because there is actual food that's grown there, and I just want to throw that shout out. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I see Councilmember Fultz, and then I'm going to go back to anyone who hasn't spoken, and then I'll wait. So I see Councilmember Shaw, and then Dr. Miles.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I know we need to get to your feedback, but I do feel like I would need to clarify or balance out maybe the views on parking. I wanted to know what the optionality is, and I wanted to know the methodology. I also think, I'm not saying that parking isn't needed there. When I think about Glenview Mansion and F. Scott Fitzgerald, to make those usable, to make them accessible to the public, we need parking. And to Councilmember Valeri's point, we did outreach to all of Rockville, and all of Rockville needs to be able to get there and access it. So I just want to balance out, like, in order for this to be useful to all of the city of Rockville, I understand that we're not at a point yet where we don't need any parking. I just wanted to be thoughtful about it. I understand that local, like people closest to developments of any kind are always going to be concerned about traffic and parking. But development requires parking and an increase in traffic. It's just going to happen. So I just wanted to balance out a little bit. I wanted to make sure we were thoughtful about it, but I do think that we need to be thinking about this public facility being useful to all of Rockville, which will require some amount of parking for it to be sustainable. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Shaw, then Miles. I have a quick comment, then I'm going to go back to Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Van Grack. Sorry, Adam.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo my colleagues and thank you on the excellent work, community engagement all over the city. And it's also essentially a model for future projects in the way that you were very innovative in reaching a lot of different people across the city. So thank you for that. I also do want to support what my colleagues were saying around the different phases. I know that the community kitchen, which is in the dairy barn, was something that was a pretty popular idea throughout the community. And I think there are a lot of different creative ways that we could use the community kitchen and the community gardens and help to address some of the issues around food insecurity. So I think there's a lot of different ideas around that. And I would also like to explore looking at putting the dairy barn in an earlier phase, 1 or 2. But I would like to just get some more information around that. And then regarding the addition, so we have the cost of the construction costs, we have the exclusion list costs, but could you share more details around if we were to build the addition, could you share more details around some of the operating costs, like in the future, and how that would impact the city?
So the full operating costs are yet to really be determined once we know all the programs. There are guesstimates included in the economic analysis report, but we will use the city's cost recovery model to determine how the programs are planned operationally and what they're expected to recover revenue-wise. So the dairy barn specifically has opportunities that fit into both Tier 2 and Tier 3, which could be anywhere from 20% cost recovery to 70% cost recovery. It just will depend on the specific program.
Okay. And my final point, I just wanted to echo what my colleagues were saying, particularly Councilmember Jackson, in continuing to find creative ways around parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate both the work of staff, the good input of community, and the comments of my colleagues. I don't have much to add. I think much has been said. If I had to answer the questions in order, I would say I do, number 1, recommend with the addition. Number 2, I do support phasing over the next 5 to 15 years. And 3, support option 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just quickly share some feedback. I was kind of alluding to some of it, and the comments of my colleagues were very helpful. I do think that the horse barn is going to cost more. I mean, I've just seen it before. The budgets are what they are, and things have only gone up in price. I am concerned about the dairy barn because if you leave that building vacant, the more than $2 million that have already been invested in it are at risk. And so thinking about phase 3, I would just want to make sure that we're preserving our investment. So with that said, given the higher cost, as well as the fact that we have made significant investments in terms of shoring those buildings up, I would like to get them into use faster. So I do support a version of the phasing. So my comment is, yes, I support 2 and phasing out of 5 to 15 years. I would like to see the dairy barn earlier phased, even in phase 1. I also love the support for the tenant house. So those are the 2 that I think are very important. I do want to make sure that we find ways to preserve the look and architecture and capturing the horse barn so that when we're ready for that, we can get it done and finding ways, but I in terms of the phasing, I think we got to finish the work that we started on dairy barn. So I just want to be clear about that. I was walking King Farm Farmstead again this morning before our LPT leadership planning team call. And it was very interesting to me just to kind of look at it from the perspective of looking at all your diagrams. It is very, very close to the neighborhoods and EYA property. I did have a chance to see that we did require EYA to develop that parking for this project, and it also serves as potentially support for overflow when they have events. However, I don't think, to me, in an earlier phase that the parking is necessarily needed at this point. I think we can always say if in the future a future mayor and council sees that it's exploding over there or there's a lot of complaints, but I have concern about you ripping up green space and planning to rip up green space so early in this game. I do think that Madison Panic Park has a lot of parking. That's what I usually do. I normally park over there and then walk over. And I also support some minimal parking by the current pavilion because just to have additional ADA parking so that people can get to the garden faster and to some of the structures are working. So that is one thing I was fine with, is some minimal additional ADA parking there, but I wouldn't plan to put almost 50 spaces and take up that whole green space just yet. I think that would be not in alignment with our current climate action goals. And I think also it would change the whole thing about stormwater management. I was walking the property on the EYA today, and I saw that they had to put these huge storm drains in. So the more asphalt you put in, the more stormwater management you need to consider. And that also has a cost, also takes up space. So I just wanted to flag that for now. I do like I just wanted to note, I mentioned this last time, but I still see it in design, and I just wanted to flag it again. There's an option where the kitchen's kind of in the middle of two spaces. I think that limits our ability to use a larger community space. So I do recommend the kitchen go toward the back, so you have the larger capacity for community spaces. You can always even segment out the rooms. But putting it in the middle, I think, really you limit how many people you can serve in a big community event. And I did want to I was wondering, as part of this process, if we've talked to our Rec and Parks team who currently run the city's daycare. We have a child care facility. Have they given any thought to whether the tenant house works well? And I just wanted to think about the actual use and people who are expert in that space as well.
So we have engaged our childcare team in discussions regarding the farmhouse and asked for their recommendations on the type of modifications or requirements that would be necessary to effectively run a childcare there. And they will be engaged throughout the process as we move forward to design that site, just to make sure that we're covering all of the requirements by law for childcare, licensed childcare, and that we're providing accessible space as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, because I know that can impact cost as well. So I just wanted to check. I meant farmhouse, sorry, not tenant house, but yeah. And then on the you were talking about some grass turf thing. Do you mean ripping up the current grass and putting turf down, or you're adding material that goes onto existing grass?
So yeah, the grass would probably have to be torn up, but then grass would be put back in its place. It's basically loops of plastic rings that get buried into the turf. It basically reinforces the grass so that when it's wet or just soft, traffic weight gets distributed across these plastic rings. It's only meant for occasional use. It can't be used every day. So in event parking situations on weekends.
So it's still real grass?
It's still
just
grass.
That you have to put something to reinforce the grass?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's environmentally friendly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Water will still, well, yeah. It's just like grass, basically, with plastic reinforcement. And it's not, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted, because there's a lot of discussion around turf.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand that better. Okay. And my colleague mentioned silos. I do think that we have to put reinforcement into this plan when it comes back to us, because otherwise, we just have to plan for it. They can't just, it looks like one of the pictures they were taken away was kind of like just the shell of it and the bottom of it, but I couldn't tell if that was intentional or not, so.
I think that was probably where it was cut off, because I was showing the first floor.
I understand.
And it was just,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
No intent to remove them at all.
Okay, so I think I've answered your questions, which is, well, I am okay with the addition. I'm also okay with the addition being phased, but I leave that to you. And I already commented on the 5 to 15 years, and I would put the dairy barns early up. And I think that's it for now. Thank you. All right, so let me move back to Councilmember Jackson and then Councilmember Van Grack.
Thank you, Mayor. So first, I I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I love the Farmstead project, and I love the work that you guys have done, both the engagement and the report. I think it's going to be a fantastic project when it gets off the ground. And I thank the mayor for her comments on, going to the farmstead and looking around. I went to the farmstead today in advance of this meeting and was just walking around and looking around. And it's really close to the EWA development, which is fine, but there would be some runoff consideration with whatever we end up doing. But my point, and I thank Council Member Fulton for saying this, is of course we need parking. But I think what I was saying earlier about imagination, about looking with a different lens, I actually was walking around and I walked around the dairy barns, I walked around the farmhouse, and was looking around the grass tree area near 355 and Ridgemont. And I don't know, I'm no planner, no designer, no public works guy, but it seems to me that there are places that could be used for parking spaces near the dairy barn, near the driveway, the farmstead driveway, right in front of the farmhouse. But you just have to use a little imagination. At least that was my view. So that's I guess what I'm saying to you guys is, come back with kind of a different view of where you could put parking spaces, and I think we should just use every aspect and not just be locked into the typical rectangular parking lot that we're used to. We should look for nooks and crannies and wherever to make parking available, but still maintain and maximize our green space.
Thank you, Councilman Van Graag.
Thank you. So first, I have just a clarification because we're talking about option 2 versus option 4. But when you were presenting option 2 and option 4 to us previously, there was a lot of different costs in addition to the addition. But when we have option 2 and option 4 here with the costs, the baseline cost is the same, and the really only difference is the addition versus the bridge. Have we merged kind of the build out of options 2 and 4 into the baseline costs, or are we looking at the baseline costs of 2 or the baseline costs of 4? Where are we in understanding where we're looking without the consideration of the addition?
Yeah, so we only had one option that we could take into this phase. So we took option 4, but to give you an idea of the cost for option 2, we removed the addition. We didn't actually draw up an option 2 at this level of detail that we did the option 4. But to approximate a cost for option 2, we removed the cost of the addition.
Well, because, and the reason why I asked that, because I know that when we were talking before, we were talking about potentially the option 2, which was the middle ground, but adding the addition to that. So the core build out would be less, but a lot of my colleagues and myself really like the idea of the addition. So are we saying that the existing, which is the bulk of the cost, the largest cost here is that build out, which you're talking about $6.9 million, right? That's the biggest cost here. And so are you saying that you used the option 4 for that number, meaning the most elaborate build out for that $6.9 million? And could there be a reduction if we went to the more middle ground option 2?
No, the 6.9 will be true of option 2 or option 4.
Okay, so basically that 6.9 is, and when I'm saying option 2 or 4, I'm saying the previous look of 2 or 4.
Yeah.
All right, so really,
we didn't do a full cost estimate at the level that we did of option 4, but there are base costs for both those options that would be similar, yes.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is we're really looking at the same numbers, whether we were looking at the previous 2 or 4, and really the only big differences in cost is the addition versus the bridge.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That significantly helps.
Yeah.
I also want to circle back because obviously it's a big consideration with regard to parking. And just to show how important this is to the community, not only do we have the president, Mr. Scott, here talking about it, but we've got community members here in the audience. And a lot of them have either written to us or talked about parking, just showing how important it is. And I think one of the most important things we can do here is similar to what Councilmember Jackson said, is communicate with the community. We have to make sure that we're doing right given all these considerations. That being said, I think we also have to understand this is a significant undertaking. We are talking about a facility here that almost dwarfs almost any other city facility next to potentially the senior center. And I know that everyone in the community, I mean, we're building an extra entrance into the senior center specifically because we want to make sure that everyone in our community has access to that. I also think while there are definitely some creative options we can potentially do with regard to parking and usage, there is no way that and similar to Councilmember Jackson, like I've walked around that area, there is no way we can have the facility and the use that we're talking about without more parking. I think that if we don't do any additional parking, those neighborhood communities that live on that around are going to be coming to us being like, I can't ever park or I can't ever have people there, because we're really talking about, I mean, we're talking about childcare, people dropping their kids off, maybe staying in the parking lot to pick up. We're talking about an amphitheater that potentially could hold 100 people. We're talking about maker spaces, kitchens. We're talking about, if we go forward with the horse barn, a facility that could host, potentially hundreds of people in an event, there just isn't the capacity there. Now, that being said, we clearly have concerns from the community. So to the extent we can communicate to, I know, and Mr. Scott's here, we have community members, to make sure the green space is critical. And that community garden, just as Councilmember Jackson said, is critical. And the green space is loved by the community of King Farm. So to the extent we can make sure that any parking that we do is, commensurate with what the community wants to see, by the same vein, there's got to be parking. Because I can tell you that there's no way that we can actually utilize this to the extent that it's truly going to help our community and the people without reasonable parking. And so I think that's critical. Now, I mean, I'm presuming that, we potentially could be looking at other options to make sure that the parking areas that we're building works for the community, right? Like, and do that engagement similar to what we were doing otherwise. I'm assuming that we're not built in to any one particular parking arrangement.
So I'll just also note, on the parking side, the analysis does not factor the Madison Panic parking at all. And so if we can look at it holistically, plus the creative parking options, is there a revision on how much parking you think you need? With thinking about walking, shuttling, metro, I just wanted to encourage deeper creativity, because we do have significant parking at Madison Panic Park, and we just built an additional 50. So I just wanted to think about that holistically. Mr. Mihalik.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the parking is interesting. We all heard loud and clear the concern about the parking. Our goal with showing parking lot D, which will feel more like green space, in an appreciable amount of the whole site, if you look at the size of the square D there, that was really our attempt to try to maximize green space while still providing an opportunity for parking when the whole venue is completely full, would be the best way to describe it. If we could move C to D and have C be that overflow lot, that would be ideal, I think. That would make people very pleased. But the challenges with parking lot C is that's really where more of the intense uses are. But I hear loud and clear from folk, it feels like it's about softening the parking lot amongst many other things. But there are ways for us to, and you can see it on the edge of the parking lot C to the north, closer to the residential uses, there are some trees there. Our goal would be to preserve either all of those trees or as many as we can. There's a potential for doing some additional berming on the edge of that. We can absolutely make sure that there's low-level lighting within the parking lot, downcast, there's not a lot of light trespass. We can also look into options to adding additional trees in the islands within the parking lot itself, again, to make it feel as green as possible and as soft as possible. And you have our commitment to use as much of the shuttle capability, Maddie Sanic Park, et cetera, but I really don't see, and we've talked about this a fair amount, us not being able to build out this facility, again, at build out without having an appreciable amount of parking in area C, but we'll do everything we can to soften that to the maximum extent possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember
And,
Valero.
and just to kind of follow up on that, because I know that we've heard, I've heard loud and clear from people even in the senior center area and those neighborhoods, because when there's major events there and people are constantly parking in those streets, we hear it. And so what I want to prevent is a situation where we're hearing about it from the folks in King Farm, but also listening to them about where we're placing the parking.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to acknowledge that it is almost 10:30. It's just I had promised this body that I would remind us when that we approach that time. So, Councilmember Valeri.
Thank you. Continuing on this topic, because I think that while you can soften, and I appreciate the city manager kind of discussing that a little bit more, you can't soften the impact of taking away that green space, nor can you soften the impact that it will have on the community garden. The impact of automobiles in that close proximity to food and other things, it absolutely changes the safety of the soil. You will have so many other issues that, as it stands right now, and I think I've mentioned this to some of my colleagues, I cannot support C for parking, period. I think that we could look at other solutions. I would be interested in seeing how D could be used, and some creative solutions there. Although I will say that has also been an amazing field for our Flags for Heroes Rotary event. So that would personally pain me, because I don't think we have a similar space, although maybe that's something we can talk about. But for a variety of reasons, and I can appreciate X number of spaces are needed per X number of events. I think there's also ways to incentivize people to not drive to events. You can actually provide discounted tickets if you show that you walked here or you biked here or whatever. So I think there's just some creativity that we can look at, because once you do the damage of putting in parking in C, we cannot undo that. And so I just can't support that as an option. But I do think there's some flexibility and some creativity as far as looking at D and maybe that being. I will also note super quickly to Councilmember Van Grack's point, actually parking around childcare and daycare facilities is different than it would be for extended events, because it's very time limited. Like, parents will or caregivers will drop a child off and then get back in their car, whereas like for another purpose, the person will be taking up the spot for much longer. So I think that there's again some creativity that can be like short-term parking sort of solutions that would be for the exclusive use of the childcare at the farmstead. But again, there's a lot of different options. But I did want to at least let my colleagues know that I can't support C parking at all.
Thank you. I also have concerns about parking near the garden in particular. I mentioned I was okay with, the parking by the pavilion and maybe even to the left of the pavilion. But I also think that green space would be a great space for a farmer's market or something along those. But the runoff is a concern. I also mentioned stormwater management. So I do see the need for people to get there and to not disturb the neighborhood. But I think we can be creative with the assets we have on that property. I really appreciate the city manager mentioning the berming. We do want to make sure that we're, berming and also trees helps to provide soundproofing. And so to the extent that we can look at that around the current King Farm community and the incoming Farmstead community, which is very, like you can see right through, that would be, I think, helpful to the neighbors because they want to welcome this great facility, but we have to think about the context as well of the community that we're in. Okay, so I'm going to I know it's almost 10:30. I want to see if there's clarity on, we've given guidance on, I've heard a number of people say, but I'm not sure if it's a majority that horse barn, the dairy barn is of interest, but I just kind of get just a clarification on whether people are wanting to move that up or not. And then I'm not sure you've gotten everyone to weigh in on addition versus not addition. So
Correct.
I just wanted to see if we can get that clarity for staff.
Mayor,
Is there anything else?
I think if we could just go through 1, 2, 3, that would be helpful. And when we get to 3, we may want to then talk about whether or not to move the dairy barn up.
So, okay, guys, we're going to give very clear, short responses. And when you get to number 3, please clarify whether you're interested in moving dairy barns up or any other part of the project up in the phasing, okay? All right, Councilmember Fulton, we're going to go down the line.
Dr. Miles did such a good job. Number 1, I recommend moving forward with the addition. I do support phasing. With everyone else, I'd like to be as short as possible. For 3, I would like to move the dairy barns up. I also think it's important to prioritize the house for the childcare. I think you guys were smart to do that. So those 2 up front.
I'll make it easy.
Councilmember Valeri.
Sorry, I'll make it easy. Ditto, Councilmember Fulton.
Okay, Councilmember Miles, after you heard the discussion, is there anything that you would like to change or add to your commentary?
None at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm in the same boat as my colleagues, okay? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. On number 1, I'm fine with either. I mean, whatever's faster, honestly. Support phasing, project implementation, yeah, but moving the horse barn back and the dairy barns up. I would just say, I just want to put in my own opinion on the parking as well. I'm against option C. I want to explore option D, or the parking lot D, as well as being creative and seeing if there can't be other spaces found. But yeah, I really have a problem with putting parking lot in area C. Now, on number 3, I support I don't support the proposed phasing, as we said.
You want to move the dairy barn up?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
And also childcare, or you're?
Oh yeah, no, I'm fine with childcare.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Shaw.
For number 1, I support the addition. Number 2, yes, I support phasing the project. And number 3, just like my colleagues have mentioned, I support moving the dairy barn up.
Councilman Van Graag.
With the addition, I support the phasing, and I also believe that we should move the dairy barn up. I'm fine with childcare, but I think the horse barn and some of the other tenant facilities need to be pushed back.
Okay, and just a quick show of hands, or if you haven't clarified, some of us have, but I think, do you support the parking at C? Do you want to comment on that? I think Councilman Shaw as well, if you have a comment on that.
This facility needs parking. It has to have parking. I'm not necessarily, the community has some concerns with regard to locations. We've got to find, I'm totally fine with us looking at universe, but there's going to have to be built parking. So I don't specifically have a comment on C versus D at start, but if there is concerns from the community about starting with C, and then we need to remove that and go to D, I'm fine with that. But there's got to be parking. So whatever we've got to do to build more parking to make it reasonable without impacting the community, we should do it. But there's got to be parking.
Councilman Shaw.
I would like to actually have more information in terms of some of the ideas that we are going to bring back.
Thank you, Councilman Fulton.
I never thought I'd be the person advocating for parking in my time up here, ever. But it needs parking to succeed. It needs parking to be available for the entirety of Rockville. I do want to make sure that we've thought about all the available parking around, but we don't say you don't need parking at F. Scott Fitzgerald because there's parking at Glenview, or we don't say you don't need parking at the Science Center because there's parking at Glenview. Like, I want to be thoughtful about it. I don't think it's particularly telling, it's a bit of a cop-out to say, like, go be creative. But do what you can, but the facility needs parking.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson and I witnessed actually Glenview Mansion being used as overflow parking for the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater. Minus the need for the ADA ramp, it worked well. And
But it's
also
overflow.
potential.
You still need parking in both places.
Right, which we do have. We have parking at the Farmstead. There's 50 spaces built for that. There's Matty Stepanek Park. I just wanted to note that there are other examples and precedents in the city where we use one facility as overflow parking. So, yes,
We have plenty of direction. We'll take a hard look at parking before we bring back the final plan.
thank you. And could you just speak to the next time this comes before us?
So we are currently on this projected schedule for October 20th for adoption.
Okay, that's great. And so we will have more clarity on the parking recommendations and just an invitation to the community to share your thoughts with us. All right, thank you very much. Colleagues, it is 10:34. We have a zoning ordinance rewrite discussion, which is significant. I just want to confirm that we are camping in tonight for an hour, or people need a break before we do that, or have another thought. I just wanted to check in with my colleagues. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Hello, Rockville. Today is September 29th, 2025, and we're reconvening meeting 23-25. I want to go to my colleagues. I know that it is very late, and we have an additional agenda item that is very significant for the city. Councilman Valeri.
Madam Mayor and my colleagues, I'd like to put forward the idea that we move this item, zoning ordinance rewrite, work session number 5, due to the lateness of the hour and the depth and breadth of this issue.
Any other comments or feedback? Councilman Fulton? Do you have any feedback? No. Okay. Anyone else have comments?
I was going to say, I mean, if there are, it is approaching 11 o'clock. And I also want to make sure that we give this next item as much attention that it deserves. So to the extent there's a feeling from almost any of my colleagues that they need a break, I'd be willing to go through. That said, I know staff is here, so I'm fine either way. But if there's a concern, I want to make sure that we give it the most attention that it deserves. And if we're approaching midnight, because it takes more than an hour and 10 minutes, which this might, this is important enough that we need to make sure it gets it the attention it deserves.
I'm going to just ask Mr. Mihalik, I know you can't give us dates now, but is there anything that's shiftable? Because there are significant discussions, like very important ones that are precedent setting for the city in this. So just want to make sure, we do want to make sure we have our full capacity, and I know that when people are tired, it may not be full capacity, so.
I was talking to my colleagues, in order to keep us moving forward to get an adoption in the spring, which seems like a long way away, but it'll be here before you know it. We'd like to have this work session at some point over the next 3 weeks. It just puts pressure on us to move things around. So I'll get with everybody and come up with a proposal Monday morning for moving things around.
Thank you very much. I support that. Any other comments from my colleagues? Okay. So I think there's 3 people who have spoken. I just want to make sure we have one more.
No, if we're looking to like straw poll, yeah, I would be in favor of moving if we can, only if we can feel confident we can get it on the agenda in 3 weeks. Sounds like you are.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm seeing thumbs up. With that said, I just want to say thank you to staff. I know this is a very meaty discussion that you have prepared very heavily for. We want you to drive safely home or bike or whatever you do, but we respect your time. And I think if we do have this at another time, I would respectfully request that we put this early in the agenda for our team who had to wait. Okay. All right. Now we'll move to mock agenda. I think that we'll have to see what Mr. Mihaly comes up with to see if he needs to shift anything. And we had a nice discussion on this during leadership planning team meeting. I'm not seeing any hands on this one. So now we'll move to old new business. I'm not seeing hands here. I just want to note that we spoke very briefly on our leadership planning team meeting about the looming potential shutdown, and also that we are recognizing that there are people who may be coming off of admin leave, and so wanted to make sure that you know that the city does have financial assistance programs. We also have referrals to other support services, and we'll be monitoring. City manager is going to be looking at how things are going and making recommendations to us. So just want to really say that we are with you in the community. We're here to help, and we're going to continue to analyze how we can be even more helpful. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Valeri.
I move that we adjourn.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Shaw seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much.